Hello and welcome back to Ruben Uncut. Today, I'm going to react to the Trump Elon Musk interview. Now, I'm not promising to watch all of this because Jesus Christ, that would be phenomenally painful. Phenomenally painful. I've decided to hold my microphone, even though I will hate that like 5 minutes into this. But it should be interesting. Things I know from watching their various interviews so far. Elon Musk's interview with Don Lemon was a fucking disaster that showed that Elon Musk is a, how to put this, politically uneducated hack who just likes to have opinions on Twitter, and it kind of sucks. He is actually stupid. For a person we think of as a goddamn genius, he is beyond incredibly stupid. I'll definitely put a link on the YouTube for that, because there's no reason you shouldn't share my pain in the experience that was, watching that. But this thing's long, so I want to get into it, and I don't want to waste a lot of time. Let's go. Tragically, I have to add this insert edit here because a significant amount of footage from this reaction actually got lost somehow. So the first 16 minutes of the Trump interview is just gone. Now, technically, what I was recording was my reaction, so that's technically what's gone. In fairness, the first 16, a minimum of 10 minutes of that part of the interview was just Trump talking about his nearly getting shot. I'm sure I had some witty things to say about it, but it is just gone. So please join me 16 minutes into the interview. It's fine. It's fine. The part that still stands out of my mind happens way later in the interview anyways. I'm not mad. I'm a little mad.
Coming from countries that are stupidly and horribly bombing Israel October 7th. They're coming from all over the world. And you look at, it's so sad, October 7th, because it should have never happened. Yeah. It's so sad when you look at Ukraine. It should have never happened. We have a defective government. These are defective people, and they're not that should be running it. But where you see it the best is the border, because you have millions of people coming in a month, and then she gets up and she tries to pretend like she's going to do something. She had 3.5 years. And by the way, they have another 5 months that they can do something, but they won't do anything. It's all, she's incompetent and he's incompetent. And frankly, I think that she's more incompetent than he is. And that's saying something, because he's not too good.
Yeah, no, I think it is essential to have a secure border. You're really not a country unless you have a secure border.
And secure elections.
Yeah, absolutely, secure elections. And so it's just essential to have a real border or
Just so everyone's aware of the gross exaggeration, the current estimate by Border Patrol is that there have been 2 million cases registered by the U.S. Border Patrol of illegal crossings. The estimated population of unauthorized immigrants in the U.S. stands at around 11 million total. Although the number has stabilized, the United States has seen spikes in migrant encounters in the last few years, with over 2 million cases registered by the U.S. Border Patrol in 2023. This is border crossing encounters, from a larger article called 1990 to 2023, Statista. I'm only reading a segment talking about 2023. So if that gives you any idea of how he's exaggerating things.
Or we can't function as a country, and our central services are being overwhelmed in a lot of cities. But as we were talking about earlier.
Social services are typically overwhelmed because they are underfunded.
I think having a legal immigration process that is smooth and efficient and done well, and I'm speaking as someone who is a legal immigrant.
Oh, wow. Elon Musk is describing Democratic policy. Like, literally, he just described what left-wing border policy is to make legal immigration easier so we can streamline and keep better track of the people entering our country. Okay, but they're not going to comment on that.
And I think that one way to think of it is, who do you want on your team? Who do you want on Team America? And I think we want to just say, okay, we want to let in
puppets,
people who are going to be great.
That is a reference to the movie I was just making for people who are not pop culture aware enough to get the joke I was making.
Contributors to society and to our economy, right. and who do you want on the team? And it's not to say that, in my opinion, actually, I'd say probably most of the illegal immigrants actually are actually good, hardworking people. That's my opinion. But some are not. And
the some are not argument, though, is wild, because you're literally saying, let's punish the many for the actions of a very small number, the few. Do you understand how wild of an argument that is?
And you just have this sort of adverse selection test where, you know, if somebody's like a career in theft or robbery, I don't understand what's taken them so long to get here, because we're such a target-rich environment. Why aren't more people who have a career in bad things coming here sooner? Because it's a piece of cake to go rob houses in LA or New York compared to other.
Do you think it's a piece of cake to rob people in America compared to Mexico and various other parts of Central and South America? Dude, Elon, you are way out of touch with world crime. Like, no, we are a much safer country than most of the country these people are coming from. Criminals are pretty successful in these other countries that we're talking about compared to America.
Other parts of the world. And in a lot of places in America, if you try to stop the person who's robbing you, you'll be arrested.
Yeah, so, that's right. What's happening with crime?
It's highly unlikely. That's a wild statement. I'm willing to believe that there are probably some weird outliers who have been arrested for trying to defend their property or some such thing. But like statistically, no, that's just not a trend.
And our police are so good, but they're not allowed to do their job. But I have to tell you, Elon, I hate to say, because
what laws are stopping the police? Please tell me.
It's such a downer to say it. I hate to say it. I hate it, but you have a lot of people that just shouldn't be. I think it's a much bigger number than you think. They're allowing, again, right, they're allowing people from their jails. And if you were running one of these countries where they come,
allowing people from the jails, like, the only way to screen for someone being from a jail is through a legal immigration process. Therefore, the solution to keeping people like that out is to fix our legal immigration process, make it smoother and easier to immigrate, while at the same time making it easier to keep track of the people coming here.
Coming from, you would have had all of them. As an example, Venezuela, their crime is down 72%. They're taking their drug dealers. They're taking, frankly, their.
Hold on. I don't believe that fucking statistic. Available data shows crime in Venezuela has dropped, but not by 67%. It's difficult to track crime statistics in Venezuela because its government doesn't publish reliable data, said Mike LaSousa, deputy director of content at Insight Crime, a think tank focused on crime and security in the Americas. Spanish language news agency reported that Venezuela's government hasn't published numbers of murders or robberies in 10 years. That might be why their crime is going down. They're just not recording it. Holy shit, that's wild, actually. Trump did not provide PolitiFact with evidence of Venezuela's 67% crime drop and didn't clarify what type of crime he meant. But LaSousa said available data does not support Trump's claim. Independent assessments, including our own observation, don't support the notion that crime has dropped by 67%, LaSousa says. LaSousa also pointed to a recent press conference during the Venezuela security official Remigio Cabalas Icaso said crime, please forgive me for butchering your name, said crime had dropped 32% in 2024 compared with 2023. The press statement from Venezuela's Minister of Interior Relations, Justice and Peace did not specify what kind of crime that figure included. Data from Venezuela Observatory of Violence, a Venezuela-based independent nonprofit that Lasusa said he trusts, also doesn't support Trump's claims. Side note, crime is probably dropping because there hasn't been a 67% drop in the past few years. The group's founder and director, Roberto Brasino Leon, told PolitiFact from Venezuela. The Venezuelan Observatory of Violence numbers show a 25% drop in violent death from 2022 to 2023, including homicides, deaths resulting from police intervention, and deaths under investigation. Despite the drop, Venezuelan Observatory of Violence notes that the national rate is still high compared with other countries in the region. In 2023, Venezuela had a rate of 26.8 violent deaths per 100,000 people. Holy shit. According to the Venezuelan Observatory of Violence, Mexico had a rate of 12 homicides per 100,000 people in the first half of 2023, according to the Instituto Nacional de The U.S. in 2022 had a rate of 6.8 homicides per 100,000 people. Okay, so that's interesting. So interesting. Very interesting.
Prisoners, they're emptying out their prisons. They're taking criminals.
There is no evidence of that.
They're murderers, they're rapists, and they're delivering them into.
But that's what Cat
did on a much smaller scale. But this is a massive scale because this is being done worldwide. But here's what's happening. Crime all over the world is down. And wait till you see the numbers that we have. This is migrant crime. This is.
Wait, did you just admit that crime is down, Trump? Because it is, by the way.
Crime that's going to be. And I saw it today in New York where somebody was knifed with raped the girlfriend of a man that stood there watching in New York in one of the shelters and started pulling out the knives, and bad things happen today. But this is happening every day. These are rough people.
You can't hold up singular incidents and try and use them as evidence for larger series of events. That's not how crime works. It's not, especially not when it's isolated incidents. You can't use one example of a bad thing happening to indicate more bad things happening.
These are people that are in jail for murder and all sorts of things, and they're releasing them into our country, and they're telling them, if you come back, we're going to kill you. We're going to give you the death penalty or kill you. So they don't want to come back. But these are rough people. These are criminals that make our criminals look like nice people. And it's horrible what they're doing. And she's in charge of it because now she's trying to say she had nothing to do with it. And she's such a liar because she was called the border czar the first day and it was on the headlines of every newspaper. She's the border czar. She never even went there. She went to one location which had nothing to do with.
I'm noticing that Donald Trump has a set of talking points that he is specifically hitting on and talking to people about. This is like the fourth time I've heard him say this about Kamala.
Where the problem is, she went in and out because she was getting a lot of pressure, but had nothing to do with the problem. But she was the border czar, and people can't allow them to get away with their disinformation campaign. Now she's trying to say that
every accusation is a confession.
She wasn't really involved, and the whole thing is horrible. She was totally in charge. She could have shut the border down without him. He didn't know what he was doing anyways. He wouldn't have even known what happened. You could shut the border down. He wouldn't even know the difference. The fact is that she was border czar, but if you don't have to call her that. The fact is,
once again, what does that mean to shut the border down? Because like all we can do to shut the border down is close the legal ports of entry. Like people could still dig under the walls, climb the walls, get into the country at numerous other points of entry where the walls haven't been completed. It doesn't make sense.
You could just call her. She was in charge of the border, and the border was the worst ever.
It's simply not work. Whether it's a question of intention.
But the things that are making the border bad right now are unrelated to the Biden administration and their policies, and have so much more to do with the fact that there is so much global instability.
or competence, we don't have a secure border, and we have people streaming over like it looks like a World War Z zombie apocalypse at times. And sometimes you got to wonder, is it real or not? So because you see things, you're like, is it real? So I went to the border at Eagle Pass, and I saw for myself in Texas, and I was like, okay, it's real. I'm like seeing this in real time. I actually posted the video like just live. I just flew there one day and just to see, hey, is this made up or real? And I'm just seeing people stream across the border, and I have to say, at least the people that I saw did not look friendly.
These
People can look at my video and say, hey,
That's a. If you had just traveled on foot from Central America to America, I don't know how friendly you're gonna look. But also, Elon, like what are you even saying? It borders on racism. No pun intended.
hey, these people look friendly. I don't look super friendly. So
These are people that Elon would not be the same man. He had to walk across the street and look these people in the eye. These are rough people. These are really rough people coming across.
That's purely speculative. You can't indicate that generalization in any way. Trump didn't even see the same people that Elon supposedly saw.
And I know rough people, and these are people that we don't want in our country. And the cat running one of these countries where they're coming from, you would have had all of them. As an example, Venezuela, their crime is down 72%. You would have had all of
72? Okay, so first of all, this is a big sign that like a person is lying. If like they give you a number and then like they keep adjusting it in a certain direction, in this case apparently up. Apparently he's previously said 67%, but now he said 72.
of them. As an example, Venezuela, their crime is down 72%. They're
Wild percentages. Although, to be fair, percentages are relative based on larger numbers. But still wild.
taking their drug dealers. They're taking, frankly, their prisoners. They're emptying out their prisons. They're taking criminals, their murderers, their rapists, and they're delivering them into.
that's what Cat
Did on a much smaller scale. But this is a massive scale because this is being done worldwide. But here's what's happening. Crime all over the world is down. And wait till you see the numbers that we have.
Did I accidentally rewind and not notice it? What the fuck?
This is migrant crime. This is crime that's going to be. And I saw it today in New York where somebody was knifed with raped the girlfriend of a man that stood there watching in New York in one of the shelters and started pulling out the knives, and bad things happen today. But this is happening every day. These are rough people. These are people that are in jail for murder and all sorts of things, and they're releasing them into our country. And
wild speculation.
They're telling them, if you come back, we're going to kill you. We're going to give you the death penalty or kill you. So they don't want to come back. But these are rough people. These are,
do you have is there documentation for this? Because this is a wild narrative.
These are criminals that make our criminals look like nice people. And it's horrible what they're doing. And she's in charge of it.
Fun fact, MS-13 came from America, and they gained power in Colombia when they were deported back to Colombia.
Because now she's trying to say she had nothing to do with it. And she's such a liar because she was called the border czar the first day, and it was on the headlines of every newspaper. She's the border czar. She never even went there. She went to one location which had nothing to do with where the problem is. She went that she was border czar. But if you don't have anything to say, the fact is it's brilliant for them because they're all of their bad people, really bad people. And
I don't look super friendly. So
these are people that Elon would not be the same man. He had to walk across the street and look these people in the eye. These are rough people. These are really rough people coming across. And I know rough people. And these are people that we don't want in our country. And
I don't know if that was a glitch or if I just accidentally rewound it. Let's move along.
Caravans are coming in and they're putting, and who's doing this are the heads of the country. You would be doing it, and so would I. And everyone would say, oh, what a terrible thing to say. The fact is, it's brilliant for them because they're all of their bad people, really bad people. And I hate to say this, the reason the numbers are much bigger than you would think is they're also taking the non-productive people. Now, these aren't people that will kill you. We have enough of them. But these are people that are non-productive.
He's literally just painting a negative picture of foreign immigrants. He's literally just painting that picture. This is wild. Although it is worth noting that, like, that's part of how America was actually founded, was Britain sending their criminals here to get them out of Britain.
productive. They are just not productive for whatever reason. They're not workers, or they don't want to work, or whatever. And these countries are getting rid of
Such a wild fucking claim.
non-productive people in the caravans in many cases, and they're also getting rid of their murderers and their drug dealers and the people that are really brutal people. And they're coming into our country at levels that have never been seen before. And I saw an ad just before I got on the air. I'm walking over here, and I saw an ad by Kamala saying how she is going to provide security. Where has she been for 3.5 years? For 3.5 years, we have 20 million people.
I think this, frankly, I think this is a fundamental.
It clearly hasn't been 20 million. Or at least I think he's referring to illegal immigrants. He might have been saying something about Social Security.
Existential issue for the United States. And if we have another 4 more years of open borders, and it's going to be even worse with another.
We do not have that.
4 more years, it's going to be even worse than it's been for the past 3.5 years. I'm not sure we've got a country.
You don't have a country left. Elon, if they get in, you will have 50 to 60 million people from all over the world, not South America only. We think of South America, we think of Honduras and El Salvador, Guatemala, and Mexico, the 4. But it's not that. It's everywhere. They're coming in from everywhere. And I had to stay in Mexico.
I think this is a super important point. Like people, it's basically, when I went down there, I was like, where are people from? It's like almost no one was from
Mexico.
It's just a border with Mexico, but the people coming in, it's Earth, the rest of Earth.
So once upon a time, the majority of illegal immigrants were migrant workers. Were coming to America specifically to do the jobs we didn't want to do. Most of them didn't stay forever. Some of them did. But by and large, that made up the majority of illegal immigrants. Now, what's happening, though, is that since 9/11, instability on a global level has slowly been escalating. Now, this is not just because of 9/11 and its side effects, but also other events as well, such as Venezuela betting their economy on oil and then having the market crash and turning them into an impoverished, semi-failed state. Now, because there's so much instability in Central America because of either crime from gangs or the collapse of Venezuela, people are now fleeing from those areas to come to America. Previously, most migrant workers were from Mexico or countries super close to Mexico, because it would be crazy for someone from Venezuela to just want to come here for a temporary job. I hope that has explained some of what they're talking about without all the conspiratorial accusations and thoughts on why this is happening.
Earth. And America is only about 4 or 5% of the population of Earth. It would only take a few percent of the rest of Earth to overwhelm everything.
We're already overwhelmed, Elon. We're overwhelmed. You had to see the news tonight about New York. And I
mean, technically, since we base everything on growth-based systems, it really is more of a concern would be how rapidly an event is occurring, not necessarily how big a population grows to, but how rapidly it occurs and whether or not the infrastructure can keep up with it. We currently make a lot of money from illegal immigration because our system can handle most of it. I don't know how many it would take to actually overwhelm the system, though.
I love that place, and what they're doing to it is horrible.
But the system should scale, is my point. If they come in at a healthy but reasonable rate, it should scale with that without it being a super big problem.
Horrible what they're doing to it. And all the courts do is they try and focus on Trump. Okay, let's focus on Trump, who did nothing wrong. I come about a rigged election. Elon, what's happened is unbelievable. You have
the courts who look at immigrants are not the same courts that are going to look at the things that Donald Trump has been accused of. So get that idea out of your head right now.
From Africa, from the Congo, they're coming from the Congo, and 22 people came in from the Congo.
Africa's been unstable a long ass time.
Recently, and they're murderers, and they're dropped. They drop them.
You can't just assume people from the Congo are murderers. That's fucking wild, actually.
They take them out of jails, which is very expensive to maintain the jails, although they don't do too much maintaining, I can tell you. But they take them out of jails, prisons. They take them out and they bring them to the United States. They deposit them.
Why would the Congo of all places in the world, want to send their criminals specifically to America. Like, why? Like, I don't even understand why that would happen. There are numerous other countries that I could imagine the Congo wanting to fuck over before they got to America. Places like Belgium. Why would they want to fuck America before they fucked Belgium? Do you even know the history of the Congo? They would want to fuck Belgium way before they ever wanted to fuck America.
In the United States and say, don't ever come back or you're going to be executed, and they don't want to come back. But
that's, by the way, he just told the exact same story with different countries and different other features.
They won't come back.
Sure.
But they're coming from Africa. They're coming from Asia. They're coming from the Middle East. They're coming from South America.
Well,
they're coming from everywhere.
Earth,
and there are a lot of really bad.
That is something that is technically true, but he's exaggerating it to make it more alarmist.
Ones.
It's just an everywhere on Earth thing, and it's just not possible for the United States to absorb everyone from Earth, or even a few percent of the rest of Earth. It's just not possible.
According to all those people who don't think overpopulation is a problem, the world's entire population can fit in Alaska. So, no?
And we're going to have, just to finish this up, we're going to have the largest deportation in history of this country. And we have no choice. Otherwise, we're going to have a country, what they've done to our country. Think of it. In Venezuela and in some of these other countries, crime is down 50, 60, 70, 80%. And you would be the...
Those numbers are those numbers are insane. Like, he literally just keeps making bigger numbers. 80% now? What the hell? In a previous interview, he apparently said 67, or maybe it was from maybe that quote was from a debate. Then he told him 73, and now he just said 80. What? How do people fall for this guy?
The same. You would. Yeah. I'll tell you what. Venezuela has not rid of all of them. They've gotten rid of about 70% really bad people. Their jails are about 50% put into the United States. The same with other countries. Some are 30%, some are at 50%. They're all different. But the bottom line is they're all going to be at 100%. Why wouldn't you put 100% of it? Yeah. And they're doing it right now while there's 30.
The thing is that an authoritarian state kind of benefits from having jails. So why would you ever want to have your jails at 100% empty? That would undermine the money you use to oppress your population. I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
Third-rate, phony candidate. Don't forget, I beat Biden. He failed in the debate miserably. And some people said, oh, gee, it's too bad. It's too bad he did so badly, or I did well in the debate. The first night they said, wow.
Biden did poorly. Trump did not do well. Trump debates like a bitch, to be completely honest.
One of the people at CNN said that was the greatest debate performance I've ever witnessed. And then
no one said that. No one fucking said that. You brought up your goddamn golf handicap.
2 days later, they didn't talk about that. They just said he was bad. But that's okay. That's the way I get treated, and I don't mind that at all. What I can tell you is this. You
obviously mind it. A person who doesn't mind it doesn't mention it. You fucking whiny bitch. You constant victim.
Not have a Democrat. We cannot have her. She's incompetent. She's as bad as Biden in a different... He hasn't done an interview since this whole scam started. And say what you want. This was a coup. This was a coup of a president of the United States. He didn't want to leave, and they said we can do it the nice way, or we can do it.
That's not what happened. Like, technically speaking, they're not even technically putting Kamala directly into power. She has not subverted the democratic process. And technically, there's nothing in the Constitution about how the Democrats have to choose their candidate. And technically speaking, Biden has the ability, people have the ability during the primary thing to give their electors to other candidates. There's nothing unconstitutional or illegal that is happening with this. He's just trying to make it sound like there is.
Do it the hard way.
Yeah, they just took him out back behind the shed and basically shot him.
Yeah. With this guy, and I'm no fan of his, and he was a...
That's a gross metaphor, Elon. That's a gross metaphor. You're literally talking to a guy who almost got assassinated, and you're going to say that? That's fucked up.
Horrible president, the worst president in history. And one of the reasons he was so bad, first of all,
Biden wasn't that bad of a president. I don't agree with everything he did or everything he stood for, and I didn't like his foreign policy all that much, but I will say this. His domestic policy was solid. Kind of under-delivered, but all politicians do. And, all honesty, his domestic policy stuff was good. I stand by that.
The Israeli attack would have never happened. Russia would never have
Wildly baseless, unprovable claims.
attacked Ukraine, and we'd have no inflation, and we wouldn't have had the Afghanistan mess.
None of these claims are provable. None of these claims are provable because there's just no way to measure it. There's no way to measure it. He can make this claim, and it sounds good to people who already want to suck his dick, but it's completely unprovable statement. There's no logical basis behind it.
If you think of it, and we wouldn't have had Afghanistan, but we think of it, we
would literally need a time machine to test out what he's saying.
You take a few of those events away, and we have a different world. We would also have inflation was caused by oil.
Yeah, I think
that's actually technically true, but we didn't start the war in Ukraine. But that's not Biden's fault that Russia wanted to do that. That's why there was a shift in the oil market. Not because Biden doesn't drill. Biden does drill.
You make an excellent point here, which is that when other countries that are thinking about invading or doing bad things, when they're thinking about that, they're thinking about, okay, what's the American president going to do? And do they fear the American president? Or is it someone they do not respect and do not fear?
You can't fear and respect somebody. And the reason I say that is because I consider trust to be an essential element of respect. If you don't trust me, then you don't respect me. You can't respect someone you don't trust. Therefore, respect and fear are not mutually compatible. Okay? It is weird that so many people on the right want us to be feared, when what we should want is to be respected. You can't have both via how I've just explained.
And I think they do rightfully be, look at the footage of the assassination. They're like, okay, President Trump is don't mess with me. Whereas I think people are.
Why didn't South Korea stop testing bombs? In fact, there actually was a gap between 2017 and 2019 where they weren't testing. And then Trump comes and visits, and 2019 has been crazy amount of testing of intercontinental ballistic missile systems and various other forms of nuclear proliferation. Although I don't think they technically have a nuke yet.
They're not going to be, and they obviously have not been at all intimidated by Biden, and they certainly will not be intimidated by Kamala. And you have to really think of that in the context of global security. That if the American president is someone that evil dictators are.
I don't consider Trump to be good for global security. We still don't know we don't know who he showed those classified documents to. A thing we know he did because it's on his own fucking recording.
Scared of. That makes a huge difference to the security of the world.
So I had a good relationship.
No, if you're scared of a country, then you have to think about how to... If you're really scared of a country, then what you have to do is think of a way to destroy that country. If people are afraid of America, they will attempt to operate against us. This is almost undeniable.
With Putin, despite the Russia hoax that lasted for over 2 years, it's just a hoax created by Hillary Clinton and Adam Schiff, some just bad people, just sick people, frankly. Schiff is a sick person. He's going to end up probably being a senator. It's hard to believe.
I don't know shit about Schiff, but I do think it's funny that he's going to attack him like this.
The whole thing is hard to believe, but they put our danger with that stuff too. They actually, when they make up stories and you have to fight your way out of it for a long time.
The thing is that we have tons of evidence of Russia sort of interfering in that election. Well, we don't have, in fact, we have evidence tying Russia to numerous people who work with Trump. The thing is we don't have any evidence directly tying Trump himself to Russia. And that's why there was no smoking gun, because Trump's really good at insulating himself while other people do the dirty work for him. You can see this in the fact that he does not talk to lobbyists. He doesn't have to, because he has his kids talk to the lobbyists for him.
time. But I know Putin very well. I got along with him very well. Respected me.
That's not a positive.
And it's just one of those things. And we would talk a lot about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye. But I said, don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. I shut down Nord Stream.
Like, that's actually a series of wild admissions. That's like a series of wild admissions. Honestly, if Trump were to be reelected and Putin were to pull out of Ukraine the very next day, that would scream collusion. That'd be the most obvious collusion ever.
Stream 2, that was the big oil pipeline, the biggest pipeline in the world going all over Europe. I shut it down. Biden came, and then they say, I loved Russia. I was a friend of Putin, and I loved Russia. No, he actually said to me one time, he said, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see.
Wait, that means you contributed to the oil-based inflation, though. Just throwing that out there.
You as an enemy. I shut down his pipeline, the biggest pipeline. They were looking at that to fund, and this pathetic president gets in there. And the first thing he did, one of the early things he did is he shut down Keystone XL pipeline, which is our pipeline that would have
Canadian pipeline.
Employed 48,000 people, pipeline workers, shuts it down.
Only to build it.
That was a massive job that Obama refused to allow. Yeah. I allowed it in my first week because
Obama was going to make it happen for a really long time. It took a ton of Native Americans protesting it to shut it down. A ton. By the way, that's what got it shut down, by the way, is because it was contaminating Native American water supplies. Fucking idiots.
It was jobs and it moved oil. And by the way, in a much more environmentally friendly way. It's underground. It's not a truck that catches on fire or a train that...
An underground pipe is not inherently better for the environment. If it leaks, that means it would leak directly into the ground, potentially the groundwater, which, unless I'm mistaken, happened.
Catches on fire. But think of it. He shut down the XL pipeline, the Keystone XL pipeline. Yeah. He shuts that down, and he approves the Russian pipeline.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's inconsistent.
I mean, I don't know if approved is the right word for that.
Certainly, but I think it's just worth emphasizing to listeners immense importance of whether the United States president is intimidating or not intimidating, and how much that matters to global security. There's some real tough characters out there, and if they don't think the American president is tough, they will do what they want to do.
I know every one of them.
And that puts the whole world in danger.
Elon, here's the other thing, is I actually don't think Trump is tough. I think Trump is the guy in prison who was told, the really weak, cowardly guy in prison who was told that making crazy eyes is the best way to survive. I really do think that. Donald Trump has himself admitted to never having been in a fight. This man hasn't really had to struggle like an average person would. Donald Trump clearly surrounds himself with yes people who give him what he wants. And he's used to that type of treatment. These things are all signs of being a softy McSoftpants. Also, he funnels absolute garbage into his body. Like, if you can look at Trump's diet and still vote for him, that tells me a lot about your diet.
I know every one of them, and I know them well. I know Putin, I know President Xi, I know Kim Jong-un of North Korea. I know every one of them. And let me tell you.
That's an interesting series of people to be so proud to that you know.
People will say, oh, this is terrible. He said, I'm not saying anything good or bad. They're at the top of their game. They're tough. They're smart.
They're dictators.
They're vicious. And they're going to protect their country, whether they love their country. They probably do. It's just a different form of love. But they're going to...
Why would we want our leader to be vicious? Like, that's actually fucking insane. If you want our president to be vicious, you do understand that, like, we have to live in that fucking country.
Going to protect their country. But these are tough people at the top of their game. And when they see a Kamala or when they see a Biden, Sleepy Joe, they can't even believe it. They can't believe this happened. All the stuff that you're seeing now, all the horror that you look at Israel, they're all waiting for an attack from Iran. Iran would not be attacking, believe me. When I was there, and I say it with respect, because I think we would have been good with Iran. I don't want to do anything bad to Iran.
As far as we can tell, Iran hated you.
Iran, but they knew not to mess around. Iran was broke because I told China, if you buy from Iran oil, it's all about the oil. That's where the money is. But if you buy oil from Iran, you're not going to do any business with the United States. And I meant it. And they said, we'll pass. They didn't. Other countries likewise. You want to buy, you're not doing business with the United States. And they were at a point where they had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for any of these instruments of terror. And it was amazing. In fact, the articles when I was leaving, which is hard to believe, actually.
That would hit our economy so hard if we stop selling things to China.
Especially when you look at what's happened to our country is so bad right now. It's such a different place. We were respected. Think of it. 4 years ago, we were so respected.
I don't know if we've ever been. I don't know if we've been respected in like 100 years. We were not respected under Donald Trump. It was clear that a lot of people, most people from democracies, interestingly enough, did not respect Donald Trump. Even Boris Johnson, who really doesn't really have that much on Donald Trump, made fun of Donald Trump.
To a point where when I said don't buy oil, they didn't buy oil, but they had no money and Israel would have never been attacked. It is zero chance. And again, I said to Vladimir Putin,
highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. Hamas has support in other places besides Iran.
Putin, I say, don't do it. You can't do it, Vladimir. You do it, it's going to be a bad day. You cannot do it. And I told him things that what I do, and he said, no way. And I said, way. And it's the last time we ever had the conversation.
What? I mean, like, what did he say? Did he say, I will fucking nuke you if you invade Ukraine? Because, like, ever since he invaded Ukraine, we've just been fighting about this country, about how we should keep our troops out of it. So I'm going to guess that he didn't threaten to put troops on the ground. Did he threaten to nuke Russia if they invaded Ukraine? Like, if that's what you did, then just fucking say it. It's wild, if true.
He would never have done. I got along well with him. I hope to get along well with him again. Getting along well with them is a good thing, not a bad thing. I got along well with him.
It is technically a good thing to be on good terms with people who we have a negative history with. It is technically it is better for us to de-escalate those things. That being said, being so unadulteratedly enthusiastic for being friends and partners with autocracies is wild.
Jong-un, when I met with President Obama just before entering, it's a sort of a ritual, and I sat down with him and we talked. It was supposed to be for a very short period of time. It turned out to be a long period of time. I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, North Korea. I had that problem worked out very quickly. It was nasty at the beginning with...
He did literally nothing. Like, you have to understand this. Trump's trip to North Korea did nothing. He always claims some type of weird victory, but literally all he did was get his picture taken with a maniac. In terms of actual accomplishments, at no point did North Korea stop testing bombs or equipment related to bombs.
Rocket Man and all the different things.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, I got a call.
Those were some epic tweets, by the way.
Yeah, they were epic, everything. He said that he has a red button on his desk. I said, I have a red button on my desk too, but my red button is much bigger and my red works. And then I called him Little Rocket Man, Little Rocket Man. Anyway, here's the bottom line. All of a sudden, I got a call from him, and they said they want to meet. They want to meet me. And we met, as you remember, we met in Singapore. We met also in Vietnam. And I got along with him great. We were in no danger. But President Obama thought we were going to end up in a war, a nuclear war with him. And let me tell you, he's got a lot of nuclear stuff, too. Exactly. He's got plenty of nuclear.
Does he currently have the actual nuclear bombs? That thing he showed you? How'd you de-escalate that situation? You know he's still testing stuff, right?
He can do plenty of damage.
It's because people like Kim Jong-un, they respond to strength, not weakness.
Well, he and I had a good relationship.
Like, this is an argument that, like, dumb people make. Like, this is literally, like, because the reality is that being strong doesn't mean being smart. It is easy to be the tough guy in a room. All you got to do is be an asshole and make people think that you can back it up. It's really not a hard thing to do. It's really not this like incredible uber move. It's because it's because it taps into our monkey brains. Okay? I'm going to steal from Joe Rogan here. It's a thing that connects with the monkey part of our brains from back before we were civilized. From back before we were even really human. Back when we were living in caves. Back when we killed most of our animals by just outrunning them. Or I should say running them down when their bodies can't process heat the same way that ours can. Being a tough guy is not some incredibly valuable thing as a leader. You don't want to be a pushover. Don't get me wrong. You got to have a backbone. You got to be able to stand up for yourself and others. But like, people who project the tough guy image don't even necessarily have a backbone. For starters, I mean, these people are sharing this opinion. And I already know from John Lemon's interview with Elon Musk that Elon Musk is, one of the most politically uneducated people on the planet who couldn't tell you shit about politics other than the fact that apparently he's got the same weird hate boner for immigrants.
Remember I met him, and
which is wild because he's an immigrant.
And we walked onto his land. Nobody ever walked onto his land before. I walked there again. I wouldn't say, let's bring up Secret Service again. I wouldn't say they were thrilled when I did that. I walked onto his land. And it was an amazing period. But we were not into with him because of me. I always say,
he sure is tight with all these former communist tanky countries. Oh, that's how there's commies for MAGA. Oh, that makes sense suddenly.
That we have enemies.
Tankies. This is why tankies like him, because tankies like Trump, because Trump validates their ass backwards heroes.
The outside, and we have enemies on the inside. We have some really bad people in our government and people that are controlling of the people. I'd mention names, but I really don't want to give them the credit.
He doesn't mention names because then he could be sued for slander.
But we have some really bad, and I say they're more dangerous than Russia and China. If you have a smart president.
More dangerous than countries that could potentially go to war, either literal or economic, with us.
A president that gets it. We are not in danger from those countries because they need us and they need our help. We forced Obama, if you think about it, Obama and Biden, and Bush to a certain extent, in all fairness, forced Russia and China together. And if you're a history, first thing you learn is you cannot let Russia and China align. But then they also got, if you take a look, Iran, and they have North Korea.
Historically, Russia and China have not successfully gotten along. In fact, that's actually what made us friends with China for a long time, was them needing an ally against Russia.
They call it the axis of evil. In the old days, you had the axis of evil. Here we have the axis of evil. These are powerful countries, very heavy nuclear, which is the biggest threat. Yeah. The biggest threat is not global warming, where the ocean's going to rise 1/10 of an inch over the next 400 years. And you'll have more ocean front.
That global warming thing is accelerating, dear sir.
Property, right? The biggest threat is not that. The biggest threat is nuclear warming, because we have 5 countries now that have significant nuclear power, and we have to not allow anything to happen with stupid people like Biden. Biden did something with Russia. There was no chance of him ever going in. And when I left, and then after I left, they started forming big armies on the border with Ukraine. And I looked at that, and I thought he was doing that because Putin's a good negotiator. I thought he was doing that to negotiate. But then Biden started saying such stupid things. For instance, he said that it can be a NATO.
Literally going to try and shift the blame of Putin's actions, which Putin and only Putin can ever own, on to Biden. This is technically victim blaming, because when you break it down, we are all responsible for our own actions. And therefore, this is on Putin, who chose to cause a military confrontation. And the fact that he was putting soldiers on the border while you were getting unelected makes it feel like, I don't know. We never proved that you were part of a collusion, but sometimes it feels like, how the fuck were you not?
NATO country. Now, Russia, for as long as there's been NATO, has said we're never going to agree to that. And we go right up front and say that. And we did things and said things through this president with a low IQ, very low IQ.
Technically, that's ableist. And I actually don't think Biden has a low IQ. I mean, he's old, but like that's not quite the same thing.
He had a low IQ 30 years ago, by the way, but now he might not even have a IQ at all. There's nothing on the board that goes this low. He said things that were so
He's just being a dick now.
Stupid. That war had zero chance of happening if I were there. Zero chance. He was saying everything the opposite. And it's so sad because many more people have been in Ukraine than you read about. You don't read about how bloody it is and how disaster. Sure. Hey, look, just in the two armies, you lost 500,000 people. And you're having a hard time. Ukraine, I don't know if you saw the article recently, and it's true. You don't hear the true story. But if you think about it, Russia's gone. Russia defeated Germany.
Sorry, I had to turn up the speed. I can't with this. I can't. Just let's get through this.
With us, and they defeated Napoleon. They've been around a long time. They're a big fighting force. Yeah, it's very unfair. And Ukraine now doesn't have enough men. They're now using young men and very old men to fight. And we're in a very bad position. And I'm not going to blame exclusively, but I can tell you I could have stopped that. And a smart president could have stopped that. It wouldn't have happened. But we had a man that actually made it more prevalent. It was so bad. The words that he was using, the stupid threats coming from a stupid face that he was using.
This is ugly. This is getting ugly. Like this is just petty bullshit. And like Biden's not running. So like, what are we even doing right now?
I said, this guy's going to cause us a war. He's going to cause us. And let me tell you, it can lead to World War III. That can lead to World War III. The Middle East can lead to. We have numerous places that could end up in World War III now for no reason whatsoever.
I think you're right. I think people underrate the risk of World War III. And it's just when you're looking at the risk of global thermonuclear warfare, it's game over for humanity. And it's something that people have, I think, after the end of the people have become complacent about. But they actually have forgotten that there are currently a lot of nuclear missiles that have targeting parameters for the United States.
And one of the things we're going to do is we're going to dome over us. Israel has it. We're going to have the best Iron Dome in the world. We need it, and we're going to make it all in the United States. But we're going to have protection because it just takes one maniac to start something. We're going to have protection, and we're going to have. Why shouldn't we have an Iron Dome? Israel has one. Some other places have one that nobody even knows about, frankly. But Israel has it. We're going to have an Iron Dome. With all of that being said, to me, that's so important, the most important. But with all of that being said, the election's coming up, and the people want to hear about the economy and the fact they can't buy groceries because they don't have enough money to buy groceries. The inflation has killed them. Food prices are up 50, 60, even 100% in some cases. And the stupid administration allowed this to happen, and it's a shame. And that's the thing that people most care about in my.
Like, I don't even know what to think about any numbers that he gives anymore, because like he just goes so wild with the numbers, just like all over the fucking place with the numbers.
Opinion. They care about the border a lot, and we discuss the border at great length. It's nice to have a forum like this where I can discuss something. And by the way, you think Biden could do this interview? Do you think that Kamala could do this interview? They would take a pass. No. So they don't need Elon. They don't need.
Anyone could do this interview. If Elon Musk would genuinely interview Biden the same way, or Kamala the same way that he's interviewing you right now, which is softer than an 80-year-old man's penis when he's run out of Cialis, they would be fine. Because this is a softball conversation. Like even though that fucking bullshit that Elon Musk was saying at the beginning, like anyone could handle this interview. This interview is so easy, so softball that like literally I feel like a child could be passed. We could elect a child off an interview like this.
Elon screaming out questions. It's pretty sad when you think that somebody that does this for a living can't answer a question or is afraid to do an interview. And in her case, with a very friendly interview, she's got all friendly interviewers. It's pretty.
Yes, absolutely.
But the big thing now is the economy, Elon. And as much as I view nuclear as the single most important thing, but a lot of people don't.
And Biden, Elon's being friendly. Are you saying that he wouldn't be friendly to her?
A lot of people don't understand that, but it doesn't have to. If I understand it, that's all you need, because if I was president, you're not going to have that kind of a problem. But the thing that they really is making them angry is what Kamala and Biden have allowed to happen to the economy. It's a disaster with inflation. The inflation, it doesn't matter what you make. The inflation is eating you alive. If you're a worker or if you're just a middle-income person, You can't afford. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, people were saving a lot of money. Today, they're using all their money and borrowing money just to live. It's a horrible thing that's happening, and we'll end that quick.
Yeah, a lot of people just don't understand where inflation comes from. Inflation comes from government overspending because the checks never bounce when it's written by the government. So if the government spends far more than it brings in, that increases the money supply, and if the money supply increases fast.
Okay, this has to be stated that is not the only thing. While that does cause inflation, it's not the only thing that causes inflation. In fact, in this very interview, they have already mentioned the oil causing the inflation, because inflation is also connected to things like supply and demand. Inflation is also connected to corporations' price gouging. Inflation is also connected to wages. Inflation is also connected to breakdowns in our infrastructure, like the ones we had with COVID. There's so many goddamn things that play in to fucking inflation. And yet they only want to talk about the ones that are convenient to them. The truth of the matter is, it's super hard to control inflation. And in fact, deflation, which was what people thought they wanted for a minute, is actually a sign that your economy fucked up somewhere.
In the rate of goods and services, that's inflation. So really, we need to reduce our government spending, and we need to re-examine. I think we need like a government efficiency commission to say, okay, where are we spending money that's sensible? Where is it not sensible? Right. And we need to live within our means. We're currently adding, I think, $1 trillion to the deficit roughly every 100 days, and the interest payments on the national debt have now exceeded the defense budget. It's on the order of $1 trillion.
It's interest.
And it keeps growing.
I rebuilt our military, largely rebuilt our military, did a great job on it, which was so important. We had jets, we had fighters and bombers that were 70 years old. We did a great job on that. Then we gave 85 billion of it back to Afghanistan, if you can believe it. We gave them 85 billion. They're one of the largest sellers of military equipment in the world. They're selling what we gave them. That was one of the most embarrassing days in the history of our country. But if you think about, let's go back to the economy. We have to bring energy prices down. Energy started at the price of gasoline. Now, your cars don't require too much gasoline. You have a good, and you do make a great product, I have to say. I have to be honest with you. That doesn't mean everybody should have an electric car, but these are minor details. But your product is incredible. But the gasoline, Elon, is...
This is a mutual suckfest. Donald Trump will now fillet Mr. Musk over the exceptional work of his stupid cars.
The cost of energy, not only gasoline, it's the cost of heating your house and cooling your house. That has to come down. It's gone up 100%, 150 and 200%. That has to come down. When that comes down, and we're going to drill, baby, drill. They stopped drilling, and then they went back to drilling because they went back to the Trump policy. But if they won, the day after they get into office, this country will go out of business because they're going to go to an energy policy that's not sustainable. Wind, different things. You're not going to have any. Yeah. And I know you're a big fan of the AI, and I have to say that AI, and this is shocking to me, but AI requires twice the energy that the country already produces for everything. We're going to have to build a lot of energy if our country will be competitive with China, because that's our primary competitor for this, or the AI. You're going to need a lot of electricity. You're going to need tremendous electricity, like almost double what we produce now for the whole country, if you can believe it.
Sure. Just going, back to this, like the SpaceX thing, which the people try to make it sound complicated, but it's not. But inflation is by government overspending. Would you agree that we need to take a look at government spending and have perhaps like a government efficiency commission that just tries to make the spending sensible and so the country lives within its means, just like a person?
The waste is incredible, and nobody negotiates prices.
That's such a wild thing for him to say, considering that Elon takes money from the government. He has. And in fact, SpaceX, he takes money from the government. He uses government resources, specifically NASA resources. It's so wild that he would talk about overspending.
You used to have a lot of people making jets, and you end up with two companies. They'll probably try and merge at some point. I went through it. Like Air Force, just a thing like Air Force One. One of the first documents they asked me to sign, a general walked in, sir, would you please sign this document? What is it? Air Force One. That's with Boeing, which is basically two planes, two 747s. And the price was $5.7 billion for two planes. Now, they're highly sophisticated, even nicer than your plane, okay? But much more sophisticated. They're I won't say what's on it, but they got a lot of stuff on it. Anyway, but it's 5.7.
That's a crazy number.
But I said, I'm not going to pay 5.7. I'm not going to do it. I said, who made the deal? Obama and his people. I said, then I know the deal's no good. I'm not going to do it. And over the course of about 4 weeks, by my saying I'm not going to do it, I got the price reduced by 1.6 billion.
That's not rational reasoning, by the way. To blanket statement, just assume that the other person's deal was bad because it was theirs, is not actually rational reasoning.
billion for the exact same plane, other than we had a nicer paint job, if you want to know the truth. But for the exact same plane, I saved one. And I said to Boeing, man, you guys must make a lot of money if you can reduce the price by that. But now what I do hear is that they're going back to the Biden administration and wanting big cost overruns because they see these dopey suckers in there and they'll end up getting some of the money back. But I shaved it by $1.6 billion for the exact same plane. And you can now take that and multiply that out times thousands of other items.
Multiply it by
the numbers are astronomical. I agree with you.
I think it would be great to just have a government efficiency commission that takes a look at these things and just ensures that the taxpayer money, the taxpayers' hard-earned money is spent in a good way. And I'd be happy to help out on such a commission.
I'd love
if it were formed.
You're the greatest cutter. I look at what you do. You walk in.
I would not trust Elon Musk to be part of that decision.
You just say, you want to quit? They go on strike. I won't mention the name of the company, but they go on strike and you say, that's okay. You're all gone. You're all gone. So everyone.
Hilarious, fun thing. This statement in this part of the interview has started a lawsuit towards Elon Musk because he brought it to the attention of several unions that Elon Musk fired a bunch of people for unionizing.
One of you is gone, and you are the greatest. You would be very good. Oh, you would love it. But if you look at Argentina,
Well, I'd be happy to
by
help
the way,
out.
congratulations. I just looked at the number of people that are listening to you and I chat. We'll go to chat. But congratulations. This is very good. It's great. And you're an interesting character. The new head of a place called Argentina, and he's a big, he's great. And he's a big MAGA fan. You know that. He ran on MAGA. And he took it to an extreme, too. He ran on MAGA, and I hear he's doing really a terrific job. It's called Make Argentina Great Again. It worked out perfectly. He came in, he bought a lot of hats, he brought over, but he's doing a big job. He really cut. And I'm hearing they're starting to do pretty well. Inflation's getting down. They had 1,000%. They had inflation, not normal inflation. They had the real deal. But we're going to have that pretty soon. We have, I think we have the worst inflation we've had in 100 years. They say it's 48 years. I don't believe it. I think we have the worst. They don't include a lot of the items that should be included.
Yeah, it's just from government overspending and not just.
This is not even remotely the worst inflation we've had historically. Around the turn of the century, I believe inflation was significantly worse during the Depression. Significantly. Let's find out. The highest rate of inflation was observed was 20.49% in 1917.
It's not spending taxpayer money effectively and having just so many departments, you can't even name them all. And what Milei is doing is he's cutting government spending, he's simplifying things, he's putting in regulations that make sense. And Argentina overnight is experiencing a giant.
Argentina is in a recession. Argentina has the worst projected economic growth of any major economy this year, the International Monetary Fund noted. But the country is projected to rebound in 2025. Milei was elected on pledges to turn around Argentina's economic woes and has acted harsh spending cuts in an attempt to rein in inflation.
According to Economics Observatory, although official dollarization is unlikely to happen, according to recent government announcements, it might emerge as a potential outcome considering that it was a central part of the president's economic agenda during the election campaign.
I don't know if you could hear that. But just in case you couldn't, essentially, according to economicobservatory.com, Argentina is unlikely to go through with its insane plan to change their currency over to the American dollar, which actually would have been insane. Probably good for us, but probably terrible for Argentina.
And improvement and prosperity. But it's also a lesson for the United States, which is that Argentina used to be one of the most prosperous countries in the world in the 30s, 40s. And because of bad government policy, it ruined the country. And if you take Venezuela, for example, Venezuela should be incredibly prosperous. They have phenomenal reserves of everything, oil, everything. And it should be prosperous, but if the government's wrong, it impoverishes the people. And so I think we should not be complacent in the United States and thinking that and taking our prosperity for granted, because if with bad government policy, the country is to the ground. And that's just something people should bear in mind, prosperity for granted.
Think of education. So we're ranked at the bottom of every list of the top 40. We're ranked number 40, number 38. Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, different countries are ranked good. Actually, China's pretty close to the top. They're a top 6 or 7, but we're ranked at the bottom, almost at the bottom, 38, 39, 40. In other words, horrible. And yet we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world.
Hold on. As of now, the United States education is ranking in the 13th place with a score of 0.883, trailing behind countries like Germany, 2nd place, and New Zealand, 3rd, according to Essay Hub, whoever that is. Other places have us ranked as 12th. Although we are ranked 33rd out of 44 for for post-high school degrees. Early childhood education, we are ranked 35th out of 37 major economies. Oof, that is shit. Although to be fair, these are from limited pools. Like, they're clearly not ranking countries that aren't first world. IMD World Competitiveness Center ranked us 12th, down from first place in 2018. Interesting. Well, that's in competitiveness. What? We were ranked 11th of the top 20 universities are American. 11 of the top 20 universities are American. Interesting. So it's really our standard education that's dragging us down. These rankings are actually wildly over the place. How do we measure education? That's interesting.
So we spend more. And what I'm going to do, one of the first acts, and this is where I need an Elon Musk. I need somebody that has a lot of strength and courage and smarts. I want to close up Department of Education, move education back to the states. Where states like Iowa, where state Idaho, not every state will do great because states that basically aren't doing good now. You look at Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. He's terrible. He does a terrible job. So he's not going to do great with education. But I would bet that 35 would do great, and 15 of them or 20 of them will be as good as Norway. Norway is considered great. You can name them. They're so good. Some of these countries are so good. But if you go into some of these really well-run states, we have states that don't know what debt is. We have states that have low taxes, no debt, everybody working. They're really well-run.
I'd like to know which states he's talking about specifically, because here's the thing is that states like California, we talk about all their debt, but the reality is in terms of economic success, states like California are actually paying for states that don't produce as much. The other thing that I found alarming about what he just described was essentially like he's okay with an educational system where some states are just dumber than others. That's literally what he just admitted to.
And maybe they have certain edges in terms of location, in terms of the land or the sun and the water and the whole thing. There are a lot of advantages to some people. But if you moved education back to the 50, you'll have some that won't do well, but they'll actually be forced to do better because it'll be a pretty bad situation. But if you think about it,
there is only so much you can get out of a stick. You can only beat a dead horse so much.
You'll have some of these states. I'll bet you'd have 30, 35 states. It'll be much better. And you know what it'll cost? Less than half what it is in Washington. These people don't care about students in these faraway states, and it'd be unbelievable.
Yeah, I think you're making a good point in that the states have to, if each state has to compete against other states, then people will naturally move.
No, that's the idea of forcing states to compete against each other is like the opposite. That would cause chaos politically. That would like literally cause chaos politically and economically. Are you fucking rich? Like literally the only people who would benefit from that would be corporations who already force states to do that. Oh my God. The entire point of being a united states is that we help each other. Is that the weaker states can help the stronger states, that we can share resources and successes. Holy Jesus, what you're talking about could potentially tear America apart. God damn.
Move to states where it's better.
California, as we said, it's a badly run state. I could go through, I got so many friends that are in those states, even if they're Democrat. I hate to mention certain states, but Illinois is badly run with Pritzker. He's a real loser. Some of these places just badly run. It's almost going to force them to run better. They won't do it good initially, but you're not going to do worse than you're doing right now. And I would say that the cost, you would cut your cost by 50 or 60%. And you'd have a little monitor. They want to make sure they're teaching English as an example. Give us a little English, right?
Sure. No, but some of these governors are doing so badly. They got so many people moving out of their state. They should get U-Haul salesmen because they're driving so much U-Haul. People moving out.
Isn't it amazing to you as a businessman that they can even survive? Like Illinois, so many people are leaving, and you wonder, how do they survive? How do they survive?
And I mean, like, the other thing is that, like, in terms of this type of competing, we already do that. Like, that already is a thing. That's part of being the United States, that we have free access to move around the country.
I saw where you left California and you moved to Texas. Texas does a great job. I just wonder, how do these states survive when big businesses, a big oil company just left California, and they moved to Texas. How do these big states survive when they lose so many businesses and their taxes are already really high? The taxes are among the highest taxes. You almost wonder, how do they continue on? And in many cases, the governors don't do a good job in their crime-ridden places. You wonder, how do they continue to just go on? It's not a good situation.
I think the only thing that's going to force some of these states to change is if they risk bankruptcy and they're not getting bailed out by the federal government. That's the only thing that's going to get them changed.
But that would that undermines the principle of being connected via a United States.
You remember the area in California where they had that, where I guess somebody had sticky fingers and they stole a lot of money, and they went into Florida, and it was very nasty for a period of time. But now it's probably the most popular place in all of California. At some point, something like that may have to happen. But the problem is you can't penalize people that loan money to the state when you have incompetent people like a Pritzker. Look, the family didn't want him in the family business, and then he ends up being governor of Illinois. Why is he going to be a great governor? And you have people, I could name every one of them. I got to know every one of these, and some are just horrible.
I think that the larger point here, too, and as you're saying, like a lot of people are concerned about the economy, a lot of people are concerned about inflation. And
like a lot of times he just like throws out some names and just is like, and they're garbage and I hate them.
Is effectively a tax on people that save money, and for people that are working day to day, it's just a form of taxation. And if we can solve the government spending problem, we'll solve the inflation problem, which means people will have a better standard of living. Yeah. That's a really big deal.
Except that not all inflation comes from government spending.
That got hurt worst are the people that did it the way they were taught to do it all through their younger life and their young life and their whole life. The people that
technically that's somewhat true. I did do what I was told to do, and I still ended up poor as hell.
Saved money, and then they got no interest on their money, and inflation destroyed them. And Frank,
I did not expect him to say that saving money. I did not expect saving money to be the thing that he was going to say that people fucked up doing.
They were almost better off if they didn't do anything like that. Those people have been absolutely decimated, and we're going to bring those people back and help those people. We've got to get the prices down. When I look at bacon costing 4 or 5 times more than it did a few years ago, when you look at some of the food products in grocery stores, people go,
McDonald's costs 100% more than it did 10 years ago. And the thing about that is that real inflation over that same time period would be 35%, not 100%.
Oh, they can't believe it. They used to be able to buy a whole cart, and today a lot of people just don't have the money. They go in and they can't buy anything. They look at sticker shock. They call it sticker shock.
I think
neither of these people actually know about going to a grocery store and not having the money for it.
It really just kind of, like I said, I think it just comes down to really, I guess, two things, which is that if you solve government overspending, you solve inflation, which improves the living standard of the average.
That would not solve inflation. You would at best reduce a certain amount of inflation. Once again, that's not the only thing that causes inflation.
And then if you deregulate, have sensible regulations, because a lot of the regulations are nonsensical and cause the cost to be extreme for no reason.
Hold on. If you're going to say that the regulations are nonsensical, then you need to give us examples of regulations that are nonsensical, because I am fucking tired of this like wishy-washy deregulation. You need to put forward specific regulations, because here's the realities that a lot of regulations exist for a reason. Regulations are the reason that milk companies can't just steal the cream out of your milk and replace it with essentially liquefied calf brains. That used to be a thing they did. We had to make rules to stop them from doing that. They would do it because they knew that cream was the most valuable part of the milk. So they essentially took the cream out, stole it from the consumer, and replaced it with a fake, cheap alternative that turned out to, like, make people really fucking sick.
But unless you've got effective deregulation, like Reagan did a great job on deregulation in the 80s.
Reagan did not do a great job. Reagan fucked America.
But it's been 40 years since we hadn't really, during your administration, we made some progress, but I think the opportunity to make.
Conservatives love anecdotal experience. When I worked in insurance, I knew a guy who used to work in like investment companies and like Wall Street and shit. And now he was sitting near me selling insurance. And him and this other old guy would always talk about the 80s. And one of the things they brought up in the 80s is that back in his day, when it was the 80s, people would just fucking embezzle like crazy. That people would just take he would see people leaving with sacks full of cash, just putting it in the trunk of their car, because there were no rules about how they were supposed to conduct them fucking selves. Now, to be fair, that guy could be full of shit. That's the problem with anecdotal evidence. But provided he's not, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Also, George H.W. Bush and Clinton continued deregulation afterwards. We've been deregulating for years. It's fucked.
Make, I think, radical progress with sensible regulation. And if those two things, yeah.
I will agree. When you use the words like sensible regulation, that sounds good, but it's clear that we're probably not on the same page about what sensible regulation would be.
We set a record. We did more deregulation and more restrictions on all of the different businesses than any other president. I remember I had the rule for everyone we put in, you have to get rid of 10 or 12.
That's not actually logical because that assumes that we can just mechanically remove them. You need, like, when you deregulate something, you need to be fucking careful that that regulation wasn't there for a very real reason. We're going to end up with lead in the paint again, people.
And we did radical cuts on all of that. And a lot of that's being put back by this administration. And we did radical cuts on things that weren't necessary. But we were all set. We had the best economy ever, maybe in the world. And then what happened?
Thanks to the Supreme Court, actually, deregulation only continues to roll on.
When this COVID came in, and we had to focus on that, and nobody knew what it was. And I always say I got good marks on economy, good marks on military. We knocked out ISIS. We did different things. We rebuilt. I never got the credit that we really deserved on what we did with COVID. We never got the credit. But had that not happened, a gift from China, from Wuhan, came in from Wuhan, the Wuhan labs, and I always said it, and it turned out to be right. But had that not happened, we were set to start reducing debt. We're going to reduce taxes further. I gave the largest tax cuts, and we were going to reduce taxes still further for middle-income people, not only businesses. But we did it for businesses because they're the ones that's why we had the great job numbers. But we were set to really start reducing debt. And we were sitting on the biggest pile of liquid gold anywhere in the world, bigger than Saudi Arabia, bigger than Russia. And we were going to drill it. We were going to make so much money. We were going to supply Europe with oil. I had stopped the Russian pipeline, and we were going to supply them with oil and gas. We were going to make a fortune. And then the COVID came in, and we really had to divert. Then what happened is when they came in, we kept a lot of businesses alive. If I didn't do what we did, we would have had a 1929 type depression. But the problem is
what we did was spend a ton of money, which actually I don't have a problem with. You kind of had to. But, like, he's not saying that part out loud.
Is when Biden came in, he got trillions of dollars and just started spending it stupidly. You didn't need it anymore. We got over that bad period where everybody was dying and it was just not a good period. Interestingly, during his administration, many more people died during his administration of COVID than during my.
That seems questionable, just statistically. Although, actually, started in 2020, which means that there would have been more time under Biden for it to kill people. So maybe it's not crazy.
Administration, and we really got the brunt of it. But people don't realize more people died during his administration than ours. But it diverted us from doing what I wanted to do. But we had the greatest for almost 3 years. And you know that probably better than anybody. So many of your friends said to me, the best years we've ever had in business were during the Trump years. And also said that African-American, Hispanic-American were so incredible. They were having the best Asian-American women, men, young people without a diploma, young people that graduated from the best colleges, from MIT, from the Wharton School, from all of the great colleges, Harvard. They were doing better, and people without a diploma were doing better. And everybody was happy. And then COVID hit. Sure. The problem is they spent trillions and trillions of dollars. They wasted. They shouldn't have taken any money, and we wouldn't be having inflation right now, which is killing our country.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should probably say something about my views on climate change and oil and gas, because I think I'm probably different from what most people would assume. Because my views are actually pretty, I think, moderate in this regard, which is that I don't think we should vilify the oil and gas industry and the people that have worked very hard in those industries to provide the necessary energy to support the economy. And if we were to stop using oil and gas right now, we would all be starving and the economy would collapse. So I don't think it's right to vilify the oil and gas industry.
There is no universe where we just automatically turn off the use of gas.
And the world has a certain demand for oil and gas, and it's probably better if the United States provides that than some other countries. Sure. And it would help with prosperity in the U.S. And at the same time, obviously, my view is we do over time want to move to a sustainable energy economy, because eventually you run out of oil and gas. It's not there it's not infinite, and there is some risk. I think the risk is not as high as a lot of people say it is with respect to global warming. But I think if you just keep increasing the parts per million in the atmosphere enough, eventually it actually simply gets uncomfortable to breathe. People don't realize this. If you go past 1,000 parts per million of CO2, you start getting headaches and nausea. And so we're now in the sort of 400 range. We're adding, I think, about roughly 2 parts per million per year. It still gives us, so what it means is we still have quite a bit of time, but so we don't need to rush, and we don't need to stop farmers from farming or prevent people from having steaks or basic stuff like that.
No one's going to stop farmers from farming, and there is currently no move to stop people from having steaks. Fucking weirdos.
Leave the farmers alone.
I agree. How crazy is that, where you have farmers that are not allowed to farm anymore and have to get rid of their cattle, and the whole world is a little crazy, but it's large.
What the fuck are you talking about?
taken its lead from us. I just say, though, I've heard in terms of the fossil fuel, because even to create your electric car and create the electricity needed for the electric car, fossil fuel is what really creates that at the generating plants. And so you can't get away from it at this moment. Someday you might be able to. Do here we have anywhere from 100 to 500 years left. Much of it hasn't even been found yet.
Yeah.
But there are tremendous, like Anwar. I got Anwar in Alaska approved. Ronald Reagan couldn't do it. Nobody could do it. Everybody tried. Nobody could do it. I got it approved. The first thing that Biden did was unimprove it, to get rid of it. He ended it. His secretary went in and she ended it. And what that's Anwar. That's bigger, or they think it could be bigger than Saudi Arabia in Alaska. Could be bigger than Saudi Arabia. But they went in and they terminated it. And I'll get it going very quickly, because not only is it big for Alaska, I mean, you talk about economic development, that for the United States, I mean, that is, they say bigger than Saudi Arabia or the same size, and pure, really good stuff. And they ended. So I think we have perhaps hundreds of years left. Nobody really knows. But during that time, something will come around that will be very good.
Yeah, my estimate would be a little more aggressive than that, but it's not the sort of like we're all going to die in 5 years. That's obviously BS. But my view is, if you just look at the parts per million that increments every year, you get 2 or 3 parts per million.
The thing is we need to start addressing these problems, because the more time it takes to address these problems, the less likely they will actually be addressed, and the less likely they will be dealt with in time, because it actually takes a really fucking long time for it to happen.
Every year of CO2. I think some of that, it's problematic if it accelerates, if you start going from 2 or 3 to say 5. And then there may be some situations where you get a step change increase in the CO2. And I think we don't want to get too close to 1,000 ppm, because that actually makes it uncomfortable to breathe. Like just existing in 1,000 ppm CO2 is uncomfortable. That's considered like an industrial hazard. Right. That's actually start getting headaches and stuff. So it's even without global warming, it's not comfortable to live. So you don't want to get too close to that. But I think we want to just move over. And if, I don't know, 50 to 100 years from now, we're I don't know, mostly sustainable, I think that'll probably be okay. So it's not like the house is on fire immediately, but I think it is something we need to move towards. On balance, it's probably better to move there faster than slower, but like I said, without vilifying the oil and gas industry and without.
This is actually a very weird take for a guy whose entire livelihood relies on you buying electric cars.
Causing hardship in the short term. I think this can be done without, people can still have a stake and they can still drive gasoline cars. It's okay. It's not, I don't think we should vilify people for it, but I think we should just generally lean in the direction of sustainability. And I actually think solar is going to be a majority of Earth's energy generation in the future. And it's certainly trending that way. And so you get the solar power, combine that with batteries, because obviously the sun doesn't shine at night. And then you use that to charge the electric cars, and you have a long-term sustainable solution. And that's what Tesla's trying to move things towards. And I think we've made a lot of progress in that regard. But when you look at our cars, we don't believe that environmentalism, that caring about the environment, should mean that you have to suffer. So we make sure that our cars are beautiful, that they drive well, that they're fast, they're
fucking hideous,
sexy, they're cool. In fact, literally, the sexy Model S, Model 3, Model X, and Y spells out sexy. It's probably the most expensive joke out there. But I don't know, I like cheesy humor. But I'm a big fan of, let's have an inspiring future, and let's work towards a better future, and we do so without demonizing.
Okay, it's very interesting. You use the word global warming, and today they use the word climate change, because you have some places that go up, and so they were getting themselves a little with the word global warming, because not every place is warming. Some places are going the opposite direction. But I'm waiting for you to.
It wasn't a term created by the actual scientists. That's why that happened. It was a term created by the media. The media is full of idiots who do cocaine and don't really understand the things they're reporting on. It's fine. We're just using a slightly more scientifically accurate term now.
To come up with solar panels on the roofs of your cars and on the trunks of the cars. And it just seems like something that at some point you will come up with. I'm sure you'll be the first. But it would seem that a solar panel on the roof, on flat surfaces, on certain surfaces might be good, at least in certain areas of the country where you have the world, where you have the sun. But I would think, and I have no idea because that's not my world, but I would think that this would be something that would be interesting. The one thing that I don't understand is that people talk about global warming or they talk about climate change, but they never talk about nuclear warming. And to me, that's an immediate problem, because you have, as I said, 5 countries.
Oh, we're back to this talking point again.
You have major nuclear, and probably some others are getting there, and that's very dangerous. That's where you need a strong American president, because you don't want to have this proliferation. But you have 5 countries, and China is much less than us right now, but they're going to catch us sooner than people think.
Wait, is that why he's trying to use Cold War politics to make himself look like the obvious choice for president? Okay, I see what it is.
Way lower. Russia and us are number 1, and we're tied. And China is far behind, but they're developing at a level that you're not surprised to hear very fast. They'll end up catching up, maybe even surpassing. But to me, the biggest problem is not climate change. It's not, and everything's a problem, but it's degrees. To me, the big problem is the nuclear power. The power of nuclear is so great. And when I talk about I'll prevent World War III, I will. But the truth is that you have to, because this is no longer army tanks going back and forth and shooting at each other. This is a level of destruction and power that nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah, and actually, there's the bad side of nuclear war, very bad side, but there's also, I think, nuclear electricity generation.
Except we have, because nuclear bombs have been tested, and we also, dropped them on Japan. I mean, I understand that nowadays our technology is more advanced, but still, to say that no one's ever seen.
Is underrated.
You're right.
And it's actually, people have this fear of nuclear electricity generation, but it's actually one of the safest forms of electricity generation. It's just a huge misunderstanding. And if you look at the injuries and deaths caused by, say, I'm not going to pick on coal mining, just any kind of mining operation, and there's a certain number of injuries and deaths per year. And you compare that to nuclear, is actually way better. So it's underrated as an electricity source, and I think it's something that's worth reconsidering. But there's so much regulation that people can't get it done. So that
maybe they'll have to change the name. It's a rough name. There are some areas like when you see what happened, we'll have to rebrand it. We'll have to give it a good name. We'll name it after you or something. No, it has a branding problem. When you see what happened,
it does have a branding problem.
When you see what happened in Japan, where they say you won't be able to go on the land for about 3,000 years. Did you ever see that? And in Russia, where they had the problem, where there's a lot of bad things happened, and they have a problem. They say that in 2,000 years, people will start to occupy the land again. You realize it's pretty bad.
No,
but you're right.
No, it's actually not that bad. So, like, after Fukushima happened in Japan, like, people were asked California are worried about nuclear cloud coming from Japan. I'm like, no, that's crazy. It's not even dangerous in Fukushima. I actually flew there and ate locally grown vegetables on TV to prove it. And I donated a solar powered system for a water treatment plant. And
yeah, but you haven't been feeling so well lately, and I'm worried about it.
No, but it's fine. It's Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed, but now they're like full cities again. So it's really not something that, Yeah. It's not as scary as people think, basically. Yeah. But let's see, there's some other topics we should touch on. Lawfare, I think we need to be concerned about.
What they've done to this country.
Obviously.
Yeah. We just won the big case in Florida. This was a Biden administration did something that's never been done in this country, and that's go after their political opponent, me, with this nonsense and just nonsense. And the big case in Florida we won.
All right, let's finally hear the victim narrative. Side note, he did not win the case in Florida. That's not what happened, but it's very likely to come back.
But they always pick a judge and a jury, and they use local DAs, they use the local attorney generals, like Fani, spelled Fani, Fani, and it's all a big hoax, and it's all run from there. Like in Manhattan, one of the top people from the Justice Department went in and ran Manhattan, ran the state. The Letitia James deal was run by a person from the Department of Justice, Biden. They've never done this before, and they set up a very bad precedent. It's called lawfare. It's a terrible thing, and never happened in our country. It does happen in banana republics and third world countries, but it's never happened. And the incredible thing is, it actually drove my numbers up, because people see. Fortunately, I have a platform like you, or in all fairness, like a conversation like this, where I can talk about it and people understand. You fight for election integrity, and you end up getting indicted because you're fighting for election integrity. And when the day comes and you can't fight for election integrity, you don't have a country anymore. So what happens is they went after their political opponent, me. Now Biden's close to vegetable stage, in my opinion. Okay, I looked at him today on the beach, and I said, why would anybody allow him? The guy could barely walk. Why would anybody allow him? Do you have a political advisor that thinks this looks good? He thinks this looks good because it looks so bad, and it's ridiculous. And he's been doing that for a long time. He can't lift the chair. The chair weighs about 3 ounces. It's for children and old people to lift, and he can't lift it. The whole thing is crazy.
Well, he's clearly we just don't have a president.
You don't have a president, and she's going to be worse than him, because she is a San Francisco liberal who destroyed San Francisco, and then as attorney general, she destroyed California. You talk about location, and we're talking about the sun and the water and all. There's nothing better than California.
Actually, Silicon Valley destroyed San Francisco.
She has destroyed that. She was the original DA. She was the original in San Francisco. She was the original in General California. What she has done to California is, you know better than I do. You just left California for a lot of those reasons. And what she's done with crime, with cashless bail, where you kill somebody, we have states there, you kill somebody and they let you out right away. You don't have to even put up, and then they never find the people unless they kill again, and then they let them out again. Our country is becoming a very dangerous place. And she is a radical left San Francisco liberal. And now she's trying to protect, now she's looking like she wants to be more Trump than Trump, if that's possible. I don't think it's possible, but she wants to be more Trump than Trump.
Yeah.
I want a wall. She wants to release all the prisoners that are in detention. And some of these guys are really bad.
Right.
That just came out today. She doesn't want to build a wall, even though the walls work. Walls and wheels. On your business, everything you do is obsolete. Almost, well, not the tunnels, but everything is obsolete. Even your rocket ships, they're like a month later, they're obsolete. You find a better way to. The only thing that's not obsolete is a wall and a wheel. And the wall, I built hundreds of miles of wall, and that's why we had such good numbers. I was going to add 200 miles.
It's just ridiculously stupid bullshit. Wheels and walls are never outdated. Wild.
We bought it. We could have flipped it up in 3 weeks, and they sold it for 5 cents on the dollar. That meant, I said, wow, that means that they actually do want to have open borders. She wants to have open borders, and now she's going like she's tough on the border. It's such a lie.
Yeah, this is simply not true. This is simply not true.
Everybody knows it's a disgrace that she can say it.
No, obviously, what's happening overnight is they're rewriting history and making Kamala sound like a moderate when in fact she is far left, like far left.
Worse than Bernie Sanders. She is considered more liberal by far than Bernie Sanders. She's a radical left lunatic, and if she's going to be our president, very quickly you're not going to have a country anymore. And she'll go back to all of the things that she believes in. She believes in defunding the police. She believes in no fracking, zero. Now,
all right, we got to talk about that. Kamala Harris is not that far left. Guys, she's a fucking cop. Like, she was a prosecuting attorney. She's not far left. Like, she's never been far left. Like, what policies make her far left. I like what should I like? What would we even say? Like it's bullshit. It's absolute nonsense. The understanding of what left even means in this country is so skewed by the popular narrative that it doesn't even matter. She is not far left. She's not even as far left as Bernie.
All of a sudden, she's saying, "No, I really want to see fracking." If they got in, the day she got in, she'll end fracking. And by the way, if people didn't think that, the lunatics that really believe in that, they won't vote for her. The Palestinians and Israel. She is so anti-Israel, and she's bad. Actually, did something that was impossible. Both sides hate him. Both sides. That was a hard thing to do. Unification.
Yeah, no, Netanyahu came to give a talk to a joint Senate and House sitting, and I was there, and Kamala stood him up. What does that say?
I think it's highly disrespectful. Say, if you're a Jewish person or if you believe in Israel, if you're a person that was very pro-Israel, if you vote for her, it's worse than Biden, and Biden was bad. But if you vote for her, you ought to have your head examined. And tonight, as we're doing this, I'm seeing reports coming that they expect an attack tonight or tomorrow from hundreds and maybe thousands of rockets. Their Iron Dome, as they call it, as we all call it, but their shield that they build, that can be swamped. We'll use a term that's appropriate, swamped. But they swamp it by shooting enough missiles. You know this better than anybody. By shooting enough missiles, they can't defend themselves. They just obliterate the whole place. And that's what some people think they're looking to do. And we have no leadership. There's no respect for the United States of America with these people. And I'm telling you, you'll be worse than him because she's a believer in being radical left, and he wasn't.
I think you're right. It's important for the public that may be listening to this to look at Kamala's track record before the last month and say, is that a track record you agree with? And I think if you're an independent moderate, you definitely would not agree with it because her behavior has been far left. And we're seeing just an overnight propaganda attempt to rewrite history and make it sound like Kamala's moderate, when she in fact is not moderate.
Her running mate approved, signed into legislation, tampons in boys' bathrooms, okay? Now, that's all I have to hear. Tampons in boys' bathrooms. And that means she believes in that too. This guy, because he was the closest to her. A lot of people thought she'd pick sort of the opposite, but she picked an anti-Israel, radical left person. But she is far worse, they say, than Bernie Sanders.
She's married to a Jewish man. It is highly unlikely that the Democrats are going to swing anti-Israel anytime soon. This is just propaganda.
If we have her as a president, if we have a Democrat at this moment as the president, I don't think our country can survive.
I think it's a massive. I think we're in massive trouble, frankly, with the Kamala administration. That's my honest opinion, and I think really it's essential that you win for the good of the country for this election, and that's understating my opinion. Now, you may have seen this, but I got a letter from the EU Commission saying to not have disinformation on during this discussion that we're having, and there's a lot of attempts to do censorship and to force censorship even on Americans from other countries. And what do you think about that?
I know
other countries have way worse censorship than us. And if anyone knows that, it's Elon Musk who has agreed to censor things for other countries where there are censorship in the laws.
The European Union very well.
Countries old Twitter didn't agree to censor things for.
They take great advantage of the United States in trade. We, through a different form, NATO, we protect them. And yet, if you build a car in the United States, you can't sell it in Europe. You just can't sell it. It's impossible. The same thing with our farmers find it very difficult to do business. We have a deficit with them of $250 billion, which people don't know. It sounds so nice, the European Union, but
we have different car standards than Europe. That's just the nature of it. The European policies on fuel efficiency are way better than America's. I'm sorry. But in Europe, your car has to at least get 50 miles to the gallon. And that's why we can't sell American cars there, because we kind of suck at making cars that are fuel efficient.
Let me tell you, they're not as tough as China, but they're bad. And I let them know it. And that's probably why they notified you. No, they don't treat our country. We defend them with Ukraine. So we're in for $250 billion, and they're in for about $71 billion. And they have the same size. If you add up the European nations in terms of an economy, it's about the same size when you say as us. And they're and they're in much greater risk. They're
probably when we pay more, and if you think about it.
Right there. We have an ocean separating us from, in this case, the enemy would be Russia. It used to be for the Soviet Union, but let's assume they're close enough. And what happens is they're in for 70-something million, I think even less than that, billion, and we're in for...
he talks about being respected by other countries, but our oldest allies, he's just hey, fuck you guys. It doesn't make sense.
About 250 billion, and it could be a lot higher than that. And I say, why aren't you going to equalize? Why aren't they paying what we're paying? And they're in much more there. It's much more important for them because of the fact that they're right near there. They're all in that location. We're not. But they should, and I did it with NATO. There were only 7 countries that were paid up in NATO out of 28 at the time. And the United States subsidizing NATO, tremendously subsidizing NATO. And I said, I went in and I said, you got to pay up. If you don't pay up, I'm going to defend you any longer. I took a lot of heat. What happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing.
Because that's wildly irregular and also potentially puts us in a negative spot with our allies.
And
Yeah,
you know,
I think a lot of the public isn't aware of the fact that the United States pays a disproportionate share of the NATO expenses.
and then we get
Even
taken
though-
advantage of on trade. So think of
Yeah,
it.
point of NATO is defending Europe, and it's okay. Why is the United States paying disproportionately more to defend Europe than Europe? That doesn't make sense. That's unfair, and that is an appropriate thing to address.
When you talk about cost cutting and savings and everything else, honestly, look, there's nobody that feels worse about the Ukraine situation than I do, because I know it would have never happened. I know Zelensky. He was very honorable to me, because when they went with the Russia hoax and they said I had a phone call with him, he said it was a perfect phone call. It was a great phone call. He could have grandstanded and said, oh, he was very threatening. He said, no, it was a very nice phone call. I called him up to congratulate him on his win, and you end up getting impeached because these people are lunatics. I was talking about the difference from the people within and the enemies on the outside. In many cases, the people from within are more dangerous for our country.
Wait, who got impeached? Which person was he talking about just then? Because it wasn't Zelensky. Who did he have a perfect? I thought Zelensky was the person he said he had a perfect phone call with. Who got impeached?
Than the Russians and the Chinas. If you have a smart president, you're not going to have a problem with them. You're going to do things.
Yeah.
Now they've taken advantage of us incredibly, but you're going to do things with the right person.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that you're a believer and an advocate of free speech, because during your first time as president, you were attacked relentlessly every day, often very unfairly with false attacks, and you didn't try to shut down the media. You didn't try to inhibit their freedom of speech. And
Trump actually did. Trump tried to remove protections for internet websites that would have allowed us to sue them. He also tried to make it easier to sue mainstream media sources so he could try and shut them down. So, no, that's a fucking lie.
I think that's his line.
The good thing is that you and I have, and some people, very few, we can get the word out. Although sometimes it's hard because they don't want to print it. Like we're having a great conversation right now. Kamala wouldn't have this conversation. She can't because she's not smart. She's not a smart person, by the way. She can't have this conversation. Biden, we don't even have
Like he's just being a petty dick. Like he's just being a piece of shit when he just says, by the way, my opponent, not a smart person. Not a smart person. She couldn't have this conversation because she's not smart. She's not smart like me. Like that's not, like, that's, you're just being a piece of shit. Like, that's just a piece of shit way to conduct yourself. And like some people are going to be like, oh, let's tell it how it is. No, that's being a piece of shit. He doesn't know Kamala that well. Don't be fucking stupid.
to talk about it. He couldn't have this conversation. He would have given up in the first half of a question. He would have walked out. He would have said, where am I? Where am I going? So anyway, but no, he wouldn't have this.
That's true.
Not a lot
I mean, like, even if that were true, like, what's he doing? He's like making fun of a guy with dementia. That's fucked up.
of people would have this conversation. We cover a lot of territory, but the beauty is that we can have a conversation, and
Yes,
I'm able to get it out without, because I get
this is
fairly
a really big point. You can have a conversation with you,
Yes.
and you can't have a conversation with Biden or Kamala. It's like it's not possible.
Yes.
So it's like talking to an NPC.
No.
So
What are you fucking talking about, Musk? He's like literally he's just been repeating the same fucking talking points he talks about all the time. Like, and you've just been like slobbing his knob. Don't you fucking pretend like this is a normal conversation, you disingenuous piece of shit.
it's just impossible.
Look, but think of it. We need a man or a person who's unbelievably sharp in order to stop all the nuclear danger and all the dangers that I'm talking about.
I'm allowed to call people pieces of shit and stupid because I'm a comedian and not running for office.
And I got along with all this. I got along with Kim Jong-un. We had dinner, we had everything. And he really
How many times are we going to fucking mention this? Oh my God.
like me, and I got along with him. By the way, he's the absolute boss over there. A lot of people said, oh, do you think he will?
Yeah, that's
Let
for
me
sure.
tell you, I saw things that you don't want to know about. He is the boss. But you know, we had a good relationship, and he doesn't.
What? What is wrong with your moral center, Trump? How can you say that and then in the same sentence be like, oh, we had a great relationship? Like, if you saw things that fucked up, how could you possibly act this nonchalantly about it? How could you possibly just be this, like, you have no moral core if that is your response. If those things genuinely coexist in your brain, Trump, that you think Kim Jong-un's a great guy, but also I saw him like really doing some fucked up dictator shit to some people, like, then that's what that should make anyone. That is a red flag for Trump. Like, that is a huge red flag that he can have the, like, those things. Like, he said it like a plus. Jesus Christ.
Like, he considers him a stupid man, he said. He's a stupid man. At least he speaks his mind. In this country, you're not allowed to say it, but I guess you are. You should be allowed to say it. That's true. But we need
everyone, you're allowed to call anyone stupid in this country. Like, literally, anyone. You can call anyone stupid in this country. And Kim Jong-un would do some fucked up shit, too, if you called him stupid. God
smart people, and we need people that have an ability to lead. And she doesn't have that ability. Can you imagine the chairman? She very well. Can you imagine her and him negotiating or standing together? It is the whole concept is ridiculous. She is terrible. She's terrible, but she's getting a free ride. I saw a picture of
baseless, just slander, like just basically like talking shit.
her on Time Magazine today. She looks like the most beautiful actress ever to live. It was a drawing, and actually, she looked very much like a great first lady, Melania. She didn't look like Camilla. That's right. But of course, she's a beautiful woman, so we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, maybe I think it's part of what people in America want to feel excited and inspired about the future. They want to feel like the future is going to be better than the past, and that America's going to do things that are greater than we've done in the past. Reach heights that make you proud to be an American and excited about the future.
They want the American dream back. They want the American dream back. More important than anything else. It's like you don't have that today because the people they've been just sucked. They see incompetent people running the Biden thing is very interesting. People just found him to be incompetent. And when I debated him, I was like, "Is this for real?" It was.
Yeah, it was just absurd. And I think that there are like some grand projects that we could do. I think we could build a base on the moon. We could send American astronauts to Mars. We could build high-speed connections that are more advanced than anything else in the world between our cities, so people have fast transport. It's possible to.
Elon, you literally fucking shut down high-speed transports in California. You literally shut down them making a high-speed rail. Fuck you. Fuck you. Also, you never delivered on a good Hyperloop, you piece of shit.
Solve traffic with tunnels. We were going to make great progress in Vegas doing that, and just do things that are exciting and inspiring to make the future.
It was a failure, you dumb asshole. Your traffic in your tunnels is horrendous because they're single fucking lane. Like, what is wrong with you?
Feel like it's better than the past.
Well, I saw what you did in Vegas, and I'll tell you, it was amazing. I took a big glimpse at it, and it's incredible. It's incredible. And you could do that all over. I
don't even know if I should believe he's seen it.
Deep. Yeah. You don't even need much structure, assuming you're in the right area.
No, it's straightforward.
It's amazing.
And I think we could do some things that like China's got incredible.
You don't need much structure to build an underground tunnel. What the fuck is even happening in this conversation?
High-speed rail between its cities, but I think it's actually possible with tunnels, if with the regulation, with an ability to actually, where it's like legal to actually do the tunnels, then you can have high-speed tunnels that are actually better than anything else in the world for high-speed transport between cities. And that would be something that Americans can say, wow, okay, we've got something that's cooler than anyone else in the world. That's the thing that makes you proud to be American.
And much safer than surface trains, where there's a danger there with crazy people. It's much safer, much better. And it's sad because I've seen.
Wait, why isn't above ground train safer from crazy people? Like, I mean, I guess underground trains can't necessarily go off the rail and just like smash into a city, but like they could also like be much harder to escape in the event of a disaster themselves.
In some of the greatest trains, I find it fascinating. And I've seen the systems and how they work, and the bullet trains, they call them. And they go unbelievably fast, unbelievably comfortable, with no problems. And we don't have anything like that in this country, not even close. And
because of Elon Musk. Like, the profound irony of this moment is astounding.
It doesn't make sense that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think also that there's hopping on the excess regulation, but I think something that I think people can generally understand is that what happens with laws and regulations is that there's more and more of them every year, and less process to clean them up. Eventually, everything becomes legal, and that actually slows down the development of new technologies. If you take the I think there's room for some reform at the FDA for improving the speed with which we approve drugs that could help save lives and improve people's lives. And
I worked very hard on that. We got that down to the lowest number ever, and we got therapeutics approved in the FDA that people can't even believe the speed. But I took them on. I don't think they like me too much, but I got things approved in the FDA at numbers that they wouldn't believe, and it's a very bureaucratic group. Actually, it's a fine group of people in many cases. I got to know a lot of them, but I was pushing them really hard for Regenerons, for so many different things that were really pretty amazing. But the FDA takes too long. It's 12 years to get a product approved. I got it down to 4, and I got some things done very quickly. But it's really something that is going to have to be worked on because it takes too long. Just takes too long.
Yeah, it just takes too long, and it's you end up in the same with the approval, but it takes years instead of something that I think could potentially take months. That improves people's lives. I think, but I just wanted to hop on.
I just want to point out the fact that Trump was just complaining about how long it takes to get drugs approved. Meanwhile, a huge portion of the people who are voting against the Democrats are anti-vaxxers, whose major complaint about the vaccine is that it came out too fast because it didn't follow proper regulation. Well, the thing is that Trump was the guy who made it come out that fast, but also what he is describing right now is like eliminating regulations on drug testing. Like, oh my God, listen, open your fucking ears, use your mind, hear what this man is saying. He's telling you how much he sucks.
this point that there has to be an active process for reducing rules and regulations, because otherwise they just keep building up every year and you get like hardening of the arteries, and eventually everything's illegal or takes forever, and then we just ossify as a society. We can't make any progress, and it's really big deal.
Elon, just getting back to the FDA for 1 second, I got something called Right to Try. This is where you can go in, and if you're terminally ill, you can use a space-age medicine or whatever it may be. We have the best doctors, the best labs in the world. We really do. But people would go to other countries because you couldn't use the product, even if they thought it worked, because it's going through the FDA. I got it approved where you can, you basically, look, nobody wanted it. The doctors didn't want it because of the liability. The country didn't want it. Our country, because they didn't want to get through it. These are people terminally ill. The insurance companies didn't want it, and the pharmaceutical companies, nobody wanted it. I got everybody into a room, and we came up with an agreement that you won't get sued. And also, they didn't want it on their record. If somebody's terminally ill and they die after taking a drug, they didn't want that on the record. So we said
literally like the thing anti-vaxxers hate about vaccines. Literally.
A separate list if somebody was, so it wouldn't count as a negative. Okay. And as we got it done, we have saved, they've been trying to get this done for 58 years. And it sounds simple, but it wasn't, because of the insurance companies. Nobody wanted it, but we got it done. Somebody signs, you sign a document that you're not going to.
You're anti-vax. You should probably vote for RFK. Let's be real.
Sue the insurance companies, the country. You're not going to sue anybody. And we got it done. And we're saving tens of thousands of lives. Right to try. Hopefully you never need it. But if you don't have to travel to Asia. People, if they had money, they go to Asia, they go to Europe. If they don't have money, they go home and die. That's what happened. They go home and die.
Yeah, and actually, to give Europe some, it's like if a drug is approved in Europe, which has a crazy amount of regulations, it should obviously be in the US. They got more regulations than we do. So why would a drug be approved in Europe and not in the US? That's crazy.
We did it. We did something that really, they've been trying to do it for 50 years and they just couldn't get it done. And I got it done. And it's really something. But you're right. Some people go to Europe. A drug isn't approved.
I'm sorry. Was the drug Regeneron? Is that the drug he was talking about? Because if it's Regeneron, it might have had trouble getting approved in America because I think it's made from stem cells. Is Regeneron made from stem cells? Yes, Regeneron is made with stem cells. That's why it's not legal in America. Because of people who would vote for Trump.
Approved here, but it's approved in Europe, and it's a drug that, generally speaking, would work. It's pretty crazy.
Absolutely. And I think so, as long as people are properly informed of the pros and cons, and like these are the risks, these are the risks, and like you make your own decision. That makes sense.
I think just in closing up, and by the way, I'm looking at the numbers. You got a lot of people listening. I hope you don't get nervous, because you got a lot of people listening to you right now, like 60 million or something. What is that number? It's crazy. It's amazing how you can see that right away. How many? What is the number? Wow. What is it?
I think
that's bigger than you said. You said 25, and you're much more than double that number, 25 million. I think you're going to be 60 or 70. And I guess over a period of time, I congratulate you. Do I get paid for this or not?
I think actually, in terms of the number of people that will hear this conversation over the next few days, weeks, it's going to be hundreds.
That's what they say. Yeah, that's good. Look, it's an honor. But I just asked this: are you better off now, or were you better off when I was president? Nobody's better off now. We put out polls on that, and nobody's better off now. Inflation has killed it, and they also feel very unsafe. You look at what's going on with a lot of different things. You look at the riots we had at the colleges over. It's ridiculous, but all of the rest, they just feel unsafe.
Everything that's happened that went wrong with my life between Trump being president and Biden being president was actually mostly my fault. It was either COVID or my fault. Like everything that fucked up my life more recently was one of those two things. So no, Biden didn't make my life worse.
And now they really feel unsafe because you have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. Maybe I'll call it Kamala migrant crime. But
with all these things, I always try to get to the ground truth.
No, there's no evidence for this. There is no massive rise in migrant crime. That's just not real.
Just asking people. And my mom lives in New York, and I was like, do you know, have any of your friends been attacked or assaulted? And she said, yeah, 3 of her friends in 3 separate incidents were assaulted just in recent months, just walking around the streets in New York. And I said, what happened to the people that assaulted them? Oh, nothing. They got away. And
no one I know in New York has been no one I know in New York has just been randomly assaulted by migrant crime. But you know, that's the problem with anecdotal evidence. He says he knows people who have. I say I know people who haven't. It's not enough. It's not enough to paint a picture.
They always get away,
and they don't even bother reporting it because they know that people are not going to get prosecuted. They just let violent criminals out in New York.
The only one that gets prosecuted is Donald Trump. They prosecute Trump.
Yeah, it's just obviously messed up.
That's terrible.
If violent criminals are getting off scot free, and meanwhile, New York spending massive resources prosecuting you. And so what's this? And I think this is a sensible public.
Oh my God, the victim complex.
That looks at this and says, well, what the heck's going on here? This is obviously abuse of the legal system. The legal system is supposed to be protecting the public from violent criminals, and it should be obviously allowing the public to make their own decision.
If there's so many of them, that would explain it. If there's really so many of them, and that they would be flooding the courts, it would explain it. And it's worth noting that the people who'd be looking at their crimes probably not the same people who are looking at Trump's crimes.
About who should be president as opposed to some legal case.
Once they start this precedent, because this can go on with the next one, this is a very bad.
Also, he was found guilty, and it makes sense he was found guilty. They had fucking receipts from the fucking checks.
precedent what they're doing in terms of going after their political opponent. And that's all it is. It's going after their political opponent. And then you get a judge who's
currently no evidence that the DOJ is involved, that the DOJ has been weaponized by the Biden administration. You would have to present evidence that that is what is happening. But you have not.
a strong Democrat, and I'm being nice when I say that, in many cases crooked as hell. But you get a judge and you go into an area where a Republican gets 3 or 4%
I feel like that should be slanderous. I feel like someone should be able to sue over that.
of the vote, and you have a jury pool with people that hate Republicans or hate supposed to be the other way.
You can't prove that. You can't prove that. And your lawyers had the same opportunity to kick people out of that jury pool as the prosecutor. So no, that's
it can start the other way in areas where they hate Democrats. And you get into a Pandora's box. It's a very dangerous thing for this country, and a very dangerous thing even for the state. New York City is losing. New York City and state lose a lot of business over what they did to me, because these people say, we don't want that to happen to us. That's no justice system. You have an unfair.
Everyone in New York does hate Trump, though, as far as I can tell. Should tell you something, because he's been in New York forever.
System of justice, and it's costing New York State a tremendous amount of money. People are leaving and companies are leaving, and they won't come back. All of that stuff is important, but the economy now is the big thing, and we can turn that economy up so fast, and people are going to be back again. We're going to get rid of inflation.
I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Right, absolutely. And I want to congratulate you. You've done an amazing job. You have definitely got a fertile mind. You and I can talk about rockets, tunnels. We can talk about tunnels and rockets and electric cars, so many things. And now you're into the AI, and that's going to be another beauty, I'll say. So it's an amazing thing you've done, Elon. It's an amazing thing, and I congratulate you.
Thank you. And I just say here's to an exciting, inspiring future that people can look forward to and be optimistic and excited about what happens next. And that's the kind of future that I think you'll bring as president, and that's why I endorse you.
I appreciate that. That endorsement meant a lot to me. Not all endorsements mean that much, to be honest. Your endorsement meant a lot. And we have a phrase, make America great again. It's pretty simple, but it really says that we want to make America great again. And we can do it. We can do it now. But if we were going to suffer another 4 years like we've suffered for the last 4 years, I'm not sure the country can ever come back. That's how it is. It's so bad. We have to do a lot.
I think that's a very real risk.
It's a big risk.
It's a very real risk. And I just like to note to people listening, like, I've not been very political before. And just if you look at my record, I've actually been, I'm not like, sometimes they try to paint me as a far right guy, which is absurd, because I'm like making electric vehicles and solar and just helping with the environment. And I supported Obama. I stood in line for 6 hours to shake Obama's hand when he was running for president. And so it's not like I'm like some sort of dyed-in-the-wool long-term Republican. I call myself historically a moderate Democrat. But now I feel like we're really at a critical.
But the thing is, Elon, is that you don't actually know shit about politics. So you just sort of flip-floppity all over the place. And you're clearly a disingenuous, dishonest person, because they had to sit through you talking about the fucking bullet trains we don't have, even though you should fucking know it's your fault.
Critical juncture for the country. And I think a lot of people thought the Biden administration would be a moderate administration, but it's not. And obviously, we were just going to...
They're pretty fucking moderate. Like, as a person who is to the left, they're pretty fucking moderate. Get over yourselves.
And even further left administration with Kamala, that's my honest opinion. Her dad is literally, she was brought up as an actual, her dad is a Marxist economist. You can Google it. It's not we're not making this up. That's how she was.
That doesn't mean that she's a Marxist. Oh my God. Do you know how many people's politics differ from their parents? Like, that's not confirmed evidence. Her policies aren't Marxist.
Brought up, and we want to have a future that is prosperous. And
but then again, Elon Musk wouldn't know what a Marxist policy looked like if he fucking like made love to his nostrils.
I think we're just at this critical juncture, and I think this is a case of America is kind of at a fork in the road, and
true.
And I think it will take a path to, like, you are the path to prosperity, and I think Kamala is the opposite. Then that's my opinion. I'm gonna get attacked like crazy.
Full-throated endorsement of Donald Trump. This has officially turned into a full-on cock-knocking slobber fest.
I've also experienced quite a bit of lawfare myself, and I'm just trying to tell people my honest opinion. And I've been really active in politics before, and I'm just trying to point out that my track record historically has been moderate, if not slightly left. And so this is to people out there.
And nor should he be involved in politics. He does not know shit about politics.
Who are in the moderate camp to say, I think you should support Donald Trump for president. And I think it's actually a very important junction in the road, and we're in deep trouble if it goes the other way.
I want to thank you. And I actually always did think of you as somewhat left. I must say that. So even more of an honor to have your endorsement. I know how strong you feel about it. But when you think of her, San Francisco, 15 years ago, I had a great friend, Bob Tish. He said it's the greatest city in America. And now it's almost not livable there. And California likewise. And she was involved in the destruction of San Francisco and the destruction of California. And she will be involved in the destruction of our country if people are so unwise as to elect her. And I hope that doesn't happen. And I hope the elections are going to be run honestly. We're going to turn this country around. We're going to do things and we can do it fairly quickly. And we have to get rid of the criminals that have been, given to us by other countries. As they laugh at us, they think we're stupid to accept these people. These are radical, stone cold killers in many cases, and terrorists. And they're in our country by the hundreds of thousands. And we have to take them out.
Yeah, I mean, if I could summarize it, perhaps, I think these are issues that I think most people in America would agree with, which is that we want safe and clean cities, we want secure borders, we want sensible government spending, we want to restore both the perception and reality of respect in the judicial system, to stop the lawfare, and I think that's like how are those even right wing positions? I think those are just.
Yeah, no, because you're not really saying full positions. You're saying generalized statements that appeal to most people. You're not actually prescribing policy. You're saying things that everyone wants to get to. You're not describing the policy to get to them. See, that's the thing. Politics is not about what we do, it's about how we do it. Everyone wants to live in a safe country. Everyone wants to live in a prosperous country. What we disagree on is how do we arrive at those places? How do we arrive at prosperity? That's where the disagreement is. So when he says everyone wants these things, it's like, well, kind of, yeah. But he's not describing any of the ways that we get to or don't get to them.
Common sense. And would you agree with that?
100%. I don't understand the whole, they call it progressive. They don't like the word liberal anymore, but call it liberal or progressive. I don't understand how.
Because there are subtle differences between liberal and progressive, just so everyone is aware.
Somebody could say,
as a leftist, they're not significant differences to me, but there are differences.
Say that it's okay for them to empty prisons into our country. And again, I told you, their crime rates all over the
No one thinks that's okay.
world are going way down, which makes sense. In fact, the next time what we'll do is if something happens with this
How are we fucking back to this point again? How are we fucking back to this point again?
election, which would be a horror show, we'll meet the next time in Venezuela because it'll be a far safer place to meet than our country. Okay, so we'll go, you and I will go and we'll have a meeting and dinner in Venezuela because that's what.
It will not. It will not, because as I looked up earlier, just because they've had a percentile go down, they still have a super high violent crime rate. Like super high. Like the fact that it's gone down is actually alarming as to what it could have been before.
What's happening? Their crime rate's coming down and our crime rate's going through the roof. And it's so simple. And you haven't.
Our crime rate is not through the roof. That is a straight up lie.
Seen anything yet because these people have come into our country and they're just getting acclimated and they don't know about being politically correct law enforcement or lack of law enforcement. And our police, I have to just end with this. We have great police. We have great law enforcement, but they're not.
We don't have a lack of police. That's not a real thing. Almost nowhere. Like 99% of America has not defunded the police.
Allowed to do their job. They have to be able to do their job without being destroyed.
Absolutely. And it's obviously demoralizing if you're
no one is destroying the police.
A police officer risking your life to arrest criminals who could kill you and do kill you sometimes. And then you arrest the violent criminal and then the DA doesn't prosecute and just let the guy out. And like, why should a police officer risk their life to arrest a violent felon if
Elon,
nothing's going to happen?
We're just throwing out hypotheticals now. There's a million reasons that trial might not have worked out. And it like just throwing out empty hypotheticals. Of
course, they prosecute the police officer. They go after it and they prosecute the police officer and they take away his pension.
99% of police officers will not even make it to that stage. The majority, it is actually extremely rare for police to be found accountable for any type of violence.
They take away his job. He loses his family. He loses his house.
I thought it was very telling, like incredibly telling, that when there was a case where a gang of thugs beat up police officers. I think it was in Times Square in New York. And then nothing happened to those guys. They were let out, zero bail, and I think a bunch of them were given free tickets to California. What is that?
I'm not sure if I am correct in what situation he is describing, because he's described it very vaguely. I believe what actually happened was the person was let out because they didn't actually arrest the correct person. They arrested someone who was wearing the same jacket as the person who was in the video. So they ended up having to release that person because he apparently wasn't even on the same side of town at the time the crime was committed. This, however, is an inconvenient fact to people who want to use this as an example of migrant crime. That is, assuming we're talking about the same criminal incident. He is being kind of vague.
There's a gross indignity against the United States, and this is insane. Have we lost all pride? How can such a thing be allowed to occur?
I've never seen anything we've seen where they get shot.
Because it hasn't occurred, you fucking twat.
Very dangerous profession, but something they're very proud of, and they want to be able to do their job. But I've seen them get shot. I've seen a lot of things. But I've never seen these guys are standing in the middle of a big street, everybody watching them, and they're literally boxing like punching, stand up fighting a police officer. There were two of them, and you had about 60 of these guys, and they're punching the hell out of them. And in their own country, they would be, if they did that, they'd be shot. They would be shot instantly. And the countries, and it's taking them a while to realize that
we shoot a lot of people instantly in this country. Who knows why those particular individual cops chose not to be murderers?
we don't do that in the country. But in their own country, if they stood on a street and had a fight with a police officer, they would be shot. There's no political correctness. And it's such a sad, it's such a sad thing to see. And
political correctness doesn't actually have a lot to do with whether or not police will shoot somebody.
That's the reason you have crime, by the way, because we don't do anything about it.
Yeah, we just cannot have a situation where our police officers are beaten up on camera by a gang of illegal immigrants, and then nothing happens to the guys that beat up the cops, and they're let out. This is unacceptable.
Well, I am now almost positive we are talking about the same incident.
Change it, and we're going to get them out of the country. When I first got involved, they said you couldn't get them back to these countries. You couldn't take them back. In the case of Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, some others, you couldn't get it back. And I said, really? Oh, you can't get it back? Because under, he couldn't get it back. They'd fly them in, and they'd put planes.
Because, like, at a certain point, like, if we're forcefully putting people into a country where the country doesn't want them, we're technically doing, like, a version of human trafficking.
On the runways in these countries, so you couldn't land a plane. They'd bring them back. And the generals told me, sir, we can't bring them back. The countries won't accept MS-13 gang members. They won't accept them. And I said, really, how much do we pay these various countries in terms of...
We once, actually, like I said before, fun fact about MS-13, we created MS-13. Well, MS-13 was actually founded on the streets of LA, and then we deported all of them back to Colombia, where they gained power and have now become one of the most terrifying gangs of all time. Because we deported them to a country where they could more easily take over.
Economic aid, which is also somewhat ridiculous.
Which actually, now I'm saying that is probably why some of these countries don't want criminals back.
And the answer was $750 million. I said, good. Tell them they're in default. They're delinquent. We're not paying them anymore because they won't accept it. And you know what happened? They all called me, every one of them. They said, we would be honored to take them back, sir. We would be honored. It was so easy. But it's one of those things. And we got it back. We took in so many. MS-13 is probably the worst gangs in the world. They're the most vicious, violent. We took them out of here by the thousands and got them out of here. And their countries took them back. And because I said, you're not getting any more economic aid. And once I said that, they were nice. They wouldn't take him back for Obama. They wouldn't take him back for anybody. And now we have a problem because we have this guy, and they don't take him back anymore with Biden because they don't respect him.
Yeah. So it's got to be done. We just can't have, whether they're citizens or not citizens, we can't have, because they want.
Trump basically describes most of his interactions as basically just hardballing people and not like actual genuine negotiations. Like, he kind of is just a bully.
Prosecute citizens either. It's not just illegals. You can't have repeat violent offenders that don't get incarcerated.
That's right.
Because they will obviously, by definition, continue to people. And I think where part of this comes from is that there's, and I do consider myself liberal in some ways. It's just that you want to have empathy for people. Obviously, you want to have empathy for people. I totally agree with that. You want to have empathy, but you also have to.
But now you're about to make an argument for not having empathy.
Have empathy for the victims of the criminals. And if you just have empathy for the criminals, it's actually shallow empathy. It's not real. You're not thinking. You're one layer deep. It's empathy. You got to say, if you don't incarcerate this person, we're going to.
But if you arrest the wrong person who wasn't even there, kind of irrelevant.
Hurt. Whether they might kill someone, they might rape someone. If you don't incarcerate them, you have to have empathy for the victims. And there's a lack of empathy for the victims. You should
have empathy for all victims of violent crime. No one is saying you shouldn't. However, no one is saying the people in that video should get to go free. What we're saying is, motherfucker, you arrested the wrong person just because he was wearing the same jacket. Jesus.
For the criminals and too much empathy for the criminals. It doesn't make sense. That's why you want to have deep empathy for society as a whole, not shallow empathy for criminals.
Right. And we have to give our police officers the dignity and the respect that they deserve. And we have to let them do their job. They can do a great job, but we have to let them do their job. And if we don't do that, it's going to all disappear. There's never been a society like this where you're allowed to do anything you want and nothing happens. And I'm talking about violence.
We don't live in that society. There's tons of law enforcement in this country. Tons of people still go into prison. In fact, America still holds the record for most motherfuckers in prison.
And crime. And it's going to get violent because these are really violent people. And we're going to get them out of our country and we're going to get them back to where, because they were sent here.
The majority of migrants are not violent. That's why you hold up anecdotal examples instead of statistics.
by the presidents and by the various people that run those countries. And I know every one of those guys. And they're smart people and they're streetwise people. And they really think that the USA is stupid. They think we're run by stupid people, and they happen to be right. But when I was
At one point, we were run by stupid people.
there, we had no problem. We got them out. We took out thousands of MS-13 gang members. We brought them back. And now, again, it's the same old story. We don't do it. And they actually gave them a big increase. They raised it up to billions of dollars and nothing for it. I hope everybody's going to vote for Trump, and we're going to get this country straight. Yeah. And I didn't need this. I'm like, I didn't need this. I had a very nice life. I didn't need to go through court systems and go through all the other stuff and run at the same time. I have to run. I have to go through.
You don't have a choice about the court stuff. You're running because you think being president is the only way to get out of all the illegal shit you did. Donald Trump is only ever running for himself. He ran for president initially because he knew he could increase the amount he was paid for that fucking show he used to do. Ah, shit. What was his show? The one where he said you're fired? The Apprentice. Yeah. That's why he ran for president previously. Because it's good for his brand. It's good for his marketing.
Through fake trials in some
But the shit he said was so racist that the television network dropped it.
Cases, corrupt judges, totally corrupt judges. I didn't need it. I had a nice life. I have great locations. I have beautiful oceans. That I have places. But I felt it was important. And if I had to do it over again, you probably think I'm crazy for doing it, actually. But if I had to do it over again, I would have done it over again, because this is so much more important than me or my life.
All ego.
We're going to save this country. This country is going down. And these people are bad people that we're running against.
The country's actually not going down that hard. Like, not nearly as hard as Elon Musk has been going down on Trump during this interview. The reality is that Donald Trump is an old man selling you old man fears. The idea that America is no longer great is an old man fear. It's also classic fascist propaganda. Make America great again. Pretty on the nose for things that fascists normally say. And I'm not talking like abstractly here. I mean like the American Fascist Party in the 1930s. And I mean Adolf Hitler saying make Germany great again, you know, in Germany.
And they're liars. They make statements. They do things that are so bad. They say they're going to make a strong border. They say they've been great on the border, and they've been the worst in history. They say they're going to stop crime.
We used to not have one, by the way, just so everyone knows. We used to technically not have one. During the beginning of this country, people just walked in all the time.
It's so incredible.
It's got to the point where people just don't even bother reporting crime in a lot of cities because they know nothing's going to happen. That's what I hear.
You can't prove that. I would need some type of data to see how big of a problem that actually is.
Anecdotally from people all the time. It's just my values. I'm just saying to people out there, like the things I think are important for the future is that we've got to have.
Oh, I hear it all the time. I'm Elon Musk. I don't live in a bubble at all.
Safe cities. We're gonna have secure borders. We're gonna have sensible spending, and we're gonna have so we can have a prosperous future. And then we want to have some exciting sort of moonshot project that people can get fired up about. But that's the future I'm looking for. And I'm pro environment, but I'm not against. I don't think we should vilify the oil and gas industry because they're keeping civilization going right now. And but I do think we want to move at a reasonable speed towards a sustainable energy economy. Those are my values, and I think.
Like, do you think we just take all the oil and gas people, put them against the wall, shoot them, and then tomorrow, like everyone's driving Flintstone style cars? Like, Elon, what the fuck are you talking about?
And that's why I'm supporting you for president.
I appreciate. We're going to give incentive to companies to come into our country, not to leave our country. We're going to be giving tremendous incentives. We want.
Aren't you the motherfucker who put the tariffs in place?
Companies to build here, not to build in other locations. And we want to create jobs. And again, it's about the American dream. You don't hear about the American dream anymore, Elon. You don't hear. You're the American dream in the truest sense, but you don't hear about the American dream anymore. And you're going to hear about.
If Elon Musk is the American dream, that's actually a sign that America is fucked. Because A, Elon Musk is someone born into wealth who has paid his way to the top while stepping on every neck possible. If he's the American dream, then the American dream is the dream of fucking bastards.
About it. People, they need that incentive to go out and do it. They're going to love their lives. They're going to look forward to getting up in the morning and going to a job that they love, not that they can't stand, or not any job at all where they have no money, where they literally have no money. And then they.
It's hard to love a job that doesn't give you meaning.
End up with violence and lots of other problems. No, we're going to do some great things. And I learned a lot in the first. We had a great economy and all of that. We rebuilt the military. We did so much. But I also learned the best people. I learned the good people, the smart people, the dumb people, the people that can do things that people learn. When I first came in, I tell people I was in Washington, D.C. only 17 times, according to the fake news media. I was in 17 times. I never stayed over. And you don't know people. You rely on other people to give you
I have no idea what the fuck he's talking about there.
names, and then you realize the people you relied on weren't so good. Now, we had great people, but we also had some where I wouldn't have, used them had I known. Now I know everybody. And I think we're going to really turn things around fast. We have no choice. Otherwise, we're not going to have a country. And I really appreciate this. To me, it's been a lot of fun being with you. You're an amazing guy. You've done an incredible job and a great inspiration to people, a great inspiration. And I hope you keep going and just continue to do well. And we're going to have a big election coming up. And I think November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country. I think that election will be the most important election. And I think it'll end up being maybe the most important day in the history of our country, because if we don't win, I just feel so sorry for everybody.
No, I think we're at a fork in the road of destiny, of civilization. And I think we need to take the right path. And I think you're the right path. So I think that's what it comes down to.
Thank you very much, Elon. It's a great honor. And we'll do it again sometime. And it's been...
Fuck it. I don't need to hear that shit. We're done. Oh my God. What the fuck? Okay. Wow. Okay. Damn. Fuck. That shit was crazy. I mean, my God. Oh, man. I just don't even know where to start. Although Elon Musk, not understanding that he is responsible for the whole goddamn bullet train situation, was pretty fucking amazing. Might have to make that into a clip of its own so that people fucking know. Trump just, he's a talking point machine. Just babbling on and on and on and on. Making sure he hits all his talking points like a genuine NPC. With his wildly exaggerated numbers. I'm tired. Thank you for putting yourself through this. If you watch the whole thing, thank you. I mean, my God, if you're at this point in the video, please do like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know you made it all the way to the end. Like, even if you hate watched it, because I'm impressed. I'm impressed you made it all the way through. So yeah, if you want to contact this show, you can email me at rubenuncut@gmail.com. This show is also available on Spotify and wherever other podcasts are found. Have a wonderful whatever, wherever, whoever you are.